Linda, starting tomorrow, our parents are moving in with us. I bought the house with the yard, so no complaining if you're not a fan. You might end up sleeping outside, got it? On moving day, Michael, my husband, dropped the bomb about living with his parents. He also decided on this house without consulting me and left me to handle all the house hunting. It's like he sees me as a maid or something, thinking I don't have a say. So I said, fine, then I'll sleep in the yard from now on. But don't be surprised by who joins me. Why are you being so stubborn? Just do as you're told, like always. Don't worry, you won't regret it. Sleep tight, but don't choke on your own spit. Okay, those last words are on you. You'll regret this, mark my words. And with that, I started getting ready, picturing Michael's worried face. The next day, he came to the yard and immediately frowned when he saw the tent I had set up. He stopped in his tracks, looking puzzled as he approached. Linda, why are you pitching a tent? You said you'd sleep in the yard, so I'm just using my camping tent. It's spacious out here, I replied calmly, stepping out of the tent with a smile. Michael frowned even more and muttered, you'll regret this. Sleep however you like, but don't say I didn't warn you. He didn't think I actually sleep outside. You're ridiculous, you know. Even if you like camping, setting up a tent in your own yard is just embarrassing. Michael mocked with a smirk, but I stood my ground, ready for my comeback against him. My husband still had that smirk on his face, but inside I was quietly amused. Just then, my in-laws arrived. They seemed taken aback by the sight of the tent, whether they understood what was going on or not. I felt a bit relieved, hoping their presence might calm my husband down a bit. When I greeted them, they looked puzzled and asked about the tent. Linda, why is there a tent in the yard? Are you planning a camping trip? They inquired, clearly curious. Before I could respond, my husband jumped in. Oh, Linda wanted to sleep outside. She's a big fan of camping, you know, he said, smoothly lying through his teeth. I couldn't believe how composed he was while deceiving them. But my in-laws accepted it without much fuss, knowing my love for camping. Just be careful not to catch a cold, they said with concern before heading into the house. Now, go make dinner, and don't say anything unnecessary to my parents, all right? My husband resumed his usual commanding tone after the in-laws left, but I shot back, sure thing. I'll cook for 5 then. Can a housewife even count? It's just the 4 of us. You, me, and my parents. Stop being dense and start cooking. You're getting on my nerves. Grumbling, my husband made his way to the new house. Suddenly, he froze in shock as a man emerged from the tent, unzipping it slowly. The yard fell silent. My husband's face registered a mix of confusion and astonishment. He tried to speak but couldn't find the words. Sorry to intrude, the man said. Why is Jim here? What's happening? This man was my husband's boss, Jim, someone my husband couldn't underestimate. It was understandable that he was taken aback to see Jim coming out of the tent where I had slept. Could it be that Linda and Jim are having an affair? Remember what Linda said yesterday, don't regret whoever I sleep with. Is she referring to an affair? What do you mean? That's not possible. Jim just got here about 30 minutes ago. I also enjoy camping. I was simply waiting in the tent until Masayoshi woke up, my husband explained, his face draining of color as if he could hear the gravity of the situation. Our private conversation had been overheard by Jim. I had heard from Linda before, but I didn't want to believe until now that you were hiding your true nature and mistreating your wife. Jim spoke slowly and calmly, but his words carried a hint of anger towards my husband. Panic swept over my husband's face, and his body began to tremble. No, that's not it. I was just being a bit firm. It's not mistreatment or anything. Just firm, he stuttered, but it didn't seem convincing to me. There was a clear tone of malice and superiority in his words. What had Linda done to deserve this? Jim's voice grew increasingly heated, causing my husband to shake even more. The arrogance he had displayed earlier, mocking me, had vanished. He seemed like a mouse cornered by a cat, frozen in fear. I can't believe this, Michael. You do great work at the company, but to treat your wife like this, I'm frankly disappointed. I never meant to mistreat my wife. I've just been stressed lately with work not going well, and I guess I took it out on her, my husband said, sweat dripping down his face as he searched for excuses, his mind racing. Despite what Jim said earlier, my husband was highly respected at work, not just for his job performance but also for his character. If you didn't know better, you wouldn't believe he could treat his wife poorly. But both Jim and I knew the truth. all the things my husband was hiding, and Jim's visit today was connected to those secrets. Then Jim quietly mentioned a woman's name to my husband, Lily Smith. You're familiar with her, right? Yes, she works at a client I handle. Is there an issue with her? She's my wife. Immediately, my husband's eyes widened with shock and confusion, rendered speechless. His expression shifted instantly to one of surprise and fear. Jim stared at my husband with a cold gaze. Gathering his courage, my husband began to speak hesitantly. Lily is Jim's wife. But that can't be, you have different last names. Lily uses her maiden name at work. It's easier for everyone as she's referred to by the name they know. Many women at her workplace do the same. I didn't know anything, and I've made a terrible mistake. In truth, my husband was having an affair with Lily Shimamoto, unaware that she was his boss's wife. Jim had come today to address the affair. I was truly stunned when I learned about your affair, especially that the other woman was my wife. This isn't something that can be shrugged off as a misunderstanding, and regardless of who the other person is, having an affair is unacceptable, Jim stated firmly. You heard it from Linda. Hey Linda, how long have you known? Since when? I've known for several months, since around the time Michael started to withdraw after learning about my infertility, I responded. The catalyst for my husband's mistreatment was my infertility discovery. While undergoing treatments, my husband was unsupportive and distanced himself, leaving me feeling alone. One day, when he claimed he was on a business trip, I accidentally witnessed him leaving for a romantic getaway. That's when I decided to investigate his affair, leading me to discover that his mistress was his boss's wife. Empowered by this revelation, a thirst for vengeance ignited within me. Then my husband floated the idea of purchasing a house in the countryside. His proposal became the catalyst for propelling forward my revenge scheme. I closely monitored his actions and meticulously crafted my plan for retribution, which led to the current circumstances. Michael, you claimed you wanted children, so I decided to redouble my efforts with the infertility treatments. But instead of standing by me, he began to ignore me completely. You left me for Lily, didn't you? You just admitted you never meant to mistreat me, but you were doing it on purpose, weren't you? You were pushing me to my breaking point, aiming for a divorce. Keeping me in the dark about living with your parents was all part of the torment, wasn't it? What do you have to say? Every word dripped with fury as my husband stumbled over his response. I could see that I had hit a nerve. With a piercing stare, I locked eyes with my husband, while Jim's gaze conveyed a mixture of disappointment and disdain. My husband's face turned pale, and his body shook, but he pushed himself to speak, adamantly denying the truth. I admit I may have been tough on Linda, but I strongly reject the accusations of an affair. It's just a baseless claim from Linda and Jim. There's no evidence, right? Linda mentioned a romantic trip, but I simply ran into Lily by chance during a business trip. We had meetings and went for drinks because of work, but there was no affair. I understand, indeed, there's no evidence. We haven't prepared any, right? There's no proof, but you're definitely having an affair. Admit it and apologize to Jim first. Linda, enough now. I didn't have an affair. If you want me to confess, show me the evidence. Don't act all high and mighty and order me around. My husband erupted in anger, his words aimed at me without restraint. The tension in the air crackled with my husband's fiery rage, a clear sign that he felt cornered with nowhere to hide his true self. Unknowingly, he was digging his own grave. What's the matter, Michael? Why are you shouting like that? It's echoing inside the house, I remarked, bewildered by his outburst. Oh, isn't that gentleman over there JLI? I'm terribly sorry for causing a disturbance. Actually, I came today to discuss Michael's affair, Jim announced calmly. The in-laws were undoubtedly stunned by Jim's words. They stood frozen, mouths open in disbelief, as a heavy silence settled over the scene. After a tense 10 seconds, Michael's father-in-law cautiously spoke up. Is it true about the affair, Michael? I find it hard to believe Jim would joke about something like this. Can you explain so we can understand? Dad, it's not true. I'm innocent. Jim is just assuming I'm guilty without any evidence. I swear I haven't done anything like that. You can trust me. Linda, what's happening? I don't understand anything, Mother, Michael protested. I'm sorry to have startled you, but what Jim is saying is true. Michael has been having an affair, and the other woman is Jim's wife. Now, I will prove it, I stated firmly. With that, I pointed to a specific spot. Michael and the in-laws followed my gaze, but all they saw was the tent in the yard. Confusion etched their faces, but they were about to witness something shocking. "I'm so sorry," Lily apologized as she emerged from the tent. Jim hadn't arrived alone. Lily had accompanied him. Thus, the entire conversation had been overheard by Lily as well. Meeting Lily for the first time, the in-laws were startled to see an unfamiliar woman stepping out of the tent. Meanwhile, my ex-husband was profoundly shaken by the realization that his affair partner had been nearby all along. "We don't need evidence, Michael. Lily has already fully admitted to the affair." "Actually, we do have evidence, but having Lily confirm it seemed quicker. I also wanted to see your reaction, and you certainly revealed your true colors. Unknowingly, you were digging your own grave. Bringing Lily here, has she already told you everything?" Michael's question prompted Lily to nod silently. Once again, Michael's body trembled, and his face drained of color. "Father, Mother, as I mentioned earlier, I have been mistreated by Michael. I wasn't even informed about this living arrangement. I had to sleep in a tent in the yard because Michael ordered it. He treated me as disposable because of my infertility and chose to have an affair with Lily. I don't understand, Michael. You told us changing our environment might improve the chance of fertility treatments. Was that all a lie? You said you would support me, right, Michael? Instead of supporting me, you were planning to abandon me." I confronted, the disappointment and anger of my in-laws finally bringing Michael to his knees, where he prostrated himself on the ground, rubbing his forehead fiercely against the earth. "I'm truly sorry. I was shocked to discover Linda's infertility. Having children was my dream, so I thought if I couldn't have children with Lily, I'd need to remarry someone else. That's when I met Lily, thinking she could fulfill my dream." Michael trembled as he desperately confessed, seeming to realize that excuses wouldn't suffice anymore. Without lifting his forehead from the ground, he continued to apologize profusely. But then his body was abruptly thrown to the ground with a dull thud under the furious gaze of his enraged father-in-law. "Linda wanted children too, didn't she? Have you ever considered her feelings? Being unable to conceive, do you think of your wife as property to be discarded when no longer needed? What do you say, Michael? Answer me." My father-in-law's usual gentleness replaced by a rage I had never seen before. Yet his face betrayed a profound sadness. It was unthinkable that his beloved son could commit such inhumane acts behind the scenes and still attempt to justify them. I've never been a parent, but the thought of my own child doing such things would tear me apart, my father-in-law expressed with anguish as Michael lay on the ground. His mother approached with a similarly pained expression. "Michael, I'm going to divorce you and claim alimony for the mental anguish you've caused," she declared, presenting the already filled-out divorce papers. Michael, still prostrate, took them. However, in a shocking turn, he retorted, "Dad's right. A wife is just property to me, disposable when no longer needed. Clearly, it's all Linda's fault. Had I known about her infertility, I wouldn't have married her. Discovering it after marriage feels like a fraud. What alimony? You, the infertile one, should be paying. Don't you dare." My father-in-law grabbed Michael by the collar again, ready to confront him physically, but I stepped in. "Linda, why stop? Are you planning to forgive Michael?" he questioned. "No, father. I will never forgive Michael. But I won't let you harm yourself over him. He's not even worth hitting now. Please let me handle this," I calmly responded, leading my father-in-law to slowly release Michael's collar. After taking a deep breath, I pulled out a piece of paper and addressed Michael. "So everything is my fault because I'm infertile, and you're the victim, right?" Michael was left speechless as I handed him the paper, which contained results he had never anticipated. "Me, infertile? I can't produce children." It turned out the cause of infertility wasn't solely mine, but also Michael's. I had requested him to provide a sample for testing, knowing that infertility isn't always due to the woman. The results diagnosed Michael with azoospermia. While there might be a chance for recovery with treatment, it seemed challenging. I had intended to inform Michael, but he was too preoccupied with his affair to engage in a proper conversation with me. Ironically, now was the first time we truly confronted each other after so long. "I don't believe this. Is this some kind of setup by Linda? Trying to frame me? It won't work," Michael protested. "It doesn't matter if you don't believe it. You'll eventually come to understand. My only desire is to sever ties with Michael and ensure he faces the consequences he deserves." Now, sign the divorce papers quickly, I urged. Are you serious? With that tone, it's gotta be a lie. Tell me it's a lie. Michael repeatedly reviewed the test results, his head in his hands. Jim, the in-laws, and I could only sigh deeply at his state. Lily appeared to be filled with regret as well. Leaving Michael behind, we stepped away from the new house, and Jim and his wife returned home to discuss further. The in-laws then apologized to me, expressing their regret. We might not have been aware, but we failed to see the pain Linda was going through. We don't expect forgiveness, but this is how we feel. We will do whatever we can for you. Even if you divorce Michael, we will always be on your side and ensure he takes responsibility. Just wait and see. There was no need for you to apologize. I was at fault too for not speaking up sooner and allowing myself to be pushed around. Plus, I almost caused you both a lot of trouble because of me. Actually here, I decided to reveal a fact I had kept hidden from my in-laws. I confessed, surprising them. But they chuckled at my thorough preparation, murmuring, "It's all Michael's doing." After finalizing the divorce with my husband, I returned to my parents' home. It didn't take long before I received frantic calls from my ex-husband. "Linda, what's happening? This is all you're doing, isn't it? Answer me." His voice left no room for negotiation. Even over the phone, I could sense his sheer desperation. Suppressing a laugh, I decided to reveal the truth. "Why so panicked? I don't know much except maybe that the new house you bought is defective." "Hey, stop joking around. I just realized it's uninhabitable because I've been too frantic to notice. What are you going to do about this?" "I'm not doing anything. You pushed the house hunting onto me, so I just followed your orders. You were the one who made the final decision to buy her, right? Is there a problem?" The decision to purchase the house with a yard was solely made by my husband, yet he dumped the entire search on me. At that point, I had already considered revenge, leading to my strategy of making him live in a defective house. You can check online for signs of a defective house, like uneven floors, ceiling checks, and door and window operations. I created a checklist and went to the viewings, choosing the property with the most issues. My ex-husband's reaction confirmed that my plan had indeed worked. The only miscalculation was his secret plan to live with my in-laws, which could have caused them great trouble. Thankfully, they now live peacefully elsewhere, away from him. "Linda, help me out. I can't afford to move with the alimony payments and I've lost my job. There's also the fertility treatment. I truly regret everything. I shouldn't have cheated. I should have valued you more." "So you only realized you were wrong after finding out you're infertile? Well, that's good for you. You should reflect on your regrets and start over. Good luck living alone." Wait. Weren't we married? Don't abandon me, please. Listen to me." His self-centered remarks nearly drove me to explode with anger. Done with him, I found any further interaction merely troublesome. Yet, I had to make my point clear. A wife is not property to be discarded when no longer needed, Michael. You said that, remember? Let me reiterate, you are no longer needed in my life. You're expendable. Live with your regrets forever. Goodbye. I could still hear his voice through the phone, but I hung up without a second thought and blocked the number. He probably learned the hard way that some actions are irreversible. As for me, I started a blog and created videos about camping, enjoying a side income while engaging in my hobby. Jim, now divorced, had more free time and occasionally joined me for camping trips or helped with my video projects. I'm truly grateful that Jim and my in-laws stood by me. When I expressed my gratitude, Jim said, "Ignoring such a wonderful woman like you, Michael, really baffled me. If you ever need help, feel free to reach out." Perhaps due to my vulnerable state, my heart skipped a beat. But it wasn't until years later that I realized this flutter was real. Yes, Jim and I ended up getting married. But that's a story for another time.
The day I lost everything started with a misplaced phone. Not mine, his. My father's smartphone, accidentally left on his desk while he rushed to a crucial business meeting. I wouldn't have touched it, except it kept buzzing with notifications that seemed urgent. That's when I saw them, the messages from Martina. "My name is Lucille, and until that moment, I was the pampered daughter of one of Boston's most successful tech entrepreneurs." The messages made my stomach turn. Intimate photos, plans for their weekend getaway, discussion of their future together, and what they'd do with my trust fund. Daddy's little princess won't need all that money anyway, Martina had written. She's too naive to know what to do with it. My father's response, once we're married, we'll put it to better use. She'll understand eventually. I was still staring at the phone when he returned to his office. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? His voice carried that familiar warmth, but now it felt like poison. I held up his phone. Who's Martina? The color drained from his face. That's private. Private like the trust fund you're planning to steal from me? My voice cracked. Private like your affair? You had no right to look at my messages. His warmth vanished, replaced by cold fury. This is exactly why you're not ready for responsibility. You're still a child who doesn't understand boundaries. Don't you dare turn this around on me. I slammed the phone onto his desk. Does Mom know? His silence was answer enough. I'm telling her everything, I said, turning toward the door. If you do that, you'll regret it. His voice was steel. Everything you have, your apartment, your car, your lifestyle, it all comes from me. Think carefully about your next move. I faced him again. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. You're 25, Lucille. What can you possibly do on your own? The next few hours became a blur. I called Mom, told her everything. By evening, security was escorting me out of the building. My key card, deactivated. My company email, deleted. My trust fund, gone, transferred to Martina's account hours after our confrontation. That night, I sat in my expensive apartment, knowing I had days before the automatic rent payment would bounce. My phone buzzed with a text from Yosef, my best friend since college. Heard what happened? Need a place to crash? I stared at my designer furniture, my walk-in closet full of clothes I couldn't afford to keep. Yes, I typed back. And maybe a job lead? My cousin's cafe is hiring. It's not glamorous, but it's something. 3 days later, I was living in Yosef's spare room, wearing a coffee-stained apron and learning how to make lattes. My father's wedding announcement to Martina made the business news. They looked perfect together, the successful entrepreneur and his younger, equally ambitious bride. Your order, ma'am? I asked a customer, forcing a smile. Triple shot vanilla latte, extra hot, she said, not looking up from her phone. It was Patricia, though I didn't know it then. She'd become important later, but at that moment, she was just another customer who didn't see me. That night, counting my tips and researching business schools I might be able to afford, I made a promise to myself. I would take back everything, not through Daddy's money or connections, but through my own power. I'd make him regret the day he underestimated me. You okay? Yosef asked, finding me still awake at 2 a.m. No, I admitted, but I will be. I'm applying to business school. With what money? I showed him my laptop screen, student loans, scholarship applications, part-time program options. I'll figure it out. I have to. You know this won't be easy, right? I thought about Martina's message. She's too naive to know what to do with it. Good, I said, typing another application. I'm done with easy. It's time they learned what I'm really capable of. The cafe's morning shift started in 4 hours. I'd be exhausted, but that didn't matter. Every coffee I served, every dollar I saved, every late-night study session, they were all steps toward my goal. My father thought he'd broken me, but he'd only succeeded in setting me free. Now I had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. Let them think I'm defeated. Let them believe I've disappeared into obscurity. They'll never see me coming until it's too late. 6 months into business school, and I was already drowning in coursework. Between morning shifts at the cafe, evening classes, and late-night study sessions, sleep had become a luxury I couldn't afford. But I was making it work. Barely. You look like death warmed over, Yosef said, sliding a fresh coffee across his kitchen counter. Thanks, just what every girl wants to hear. I grabbed the coffee and my laptop. I've got a presentation in corporate finance in 2 hours, and I still need to polish the slides. The one about hostile takeovers? I smiled despite my exhaustion. The irony isn't lost on me. My phone buzzed, a news alert about my father's company. The stock had jumped 15% after announcing a merger with Martina's tech consulting firm. I forced myself to read the whole article, noting every detail. Still tracking them? Yosef asked, peering over my shoulder. Know your enemy, I muttered, then caught his concerned look. What? Nothing. Just don't lose yourself in this, okay? Before I could respond, my phone rang. Patricia, the regular from the cafe who'd become something of a mentor after discovering I was in business school. Lucille, are you sitting down? Her voice crackled with excitement. Remember that summer internship program I mentioned? A spot just opened up. It's yours if you want it. My heart raced. Patricia's venture capital firm was exactly where I needed to be. When do I start? Next week. But fair warning, it's full time. You'll have to quit the cafe. I glanced at my bank account on my laptop screen. The numbers were already tight. I can't afford to. It's paid, she cut in, competitively. And before you protest about fairness, you earned this. Your proposal for restructuring that failing startup last month? Brilliant. After hanging up, I turned to Yosef. I got it, the internship at Walsh Ventures. He hugged me. See, things are turning around. I need to go shopping, I realized, looking down at my coffee-stained jeans. I can't show up looking like a barista. I know just the place, he grinned. Discount designer boutique. My sister swears by it. That afternoon, armed with 2 new business suits and a confidence I hadn't felt in months, I walked into my corporate finance class. Professor Adams was discussing merger strategies when my classmate Sarah poked my arm. Isn't that your dad's company? She whispered, pointing to the projection screen. There it was, a case study on successful modern mergers, featuring my father's latest triumph. My hands clenched under the desk. Ms. Craig, Professor Adams called out, since you seem interested in this particular case, perhaps you'd like to share your thoughts on the merger strategy? The class turned to look at me. They knew who I was, or rather, who I used to be. I stood, my voice steady. The merger appears successful on paper, but there are concerning patterns in the quarterly reports. The acquired company's valuation seems inflated, and the projected synergies are optimistic at best. Professor Adams raised an eyebrow. Interesting perspective. Care to elaborate? For the next 5 minutes, I detailed everything wrong with my father's merger. Every weakness, every potential point of failure. When I finished, the room was silent. Exceptional analysis, Professor Adams said finally. Have you considered a career in corporate restructuring? After class, Sarah caught up with me. That was incredible. How did you know all that? Let's just say I pay attention to details. I checked my phone. An email from Patricia about orientation details. Hey, Sarah said, a bunch of us are getting drinks tonight to celebrate finishing midterms. Want to join? I almost declined, my usual response to social invitations. But something stopped me. You know what? Yes, I could use a break. That night at the bar, surrounded by classmates who knew me only as Lucille the hardworking student, not Lucille the disgraced heiress, I felt something shift. These people respected me for my mind, not my last name. To surviving midterms, Sarah raised her glass. And to new beginnings, I added, clinking glasses with the group. My phone buzzed again. Another news alert. My father's company had just announced Martina as their new chief strategy officer. The photo showed them together, smiling, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Everything okay? Sarah asked, noticing my expression. I locked my phone, shoving it into my bag. Perfect. Actually, I have a question about that venture capital internship I just landed. The pieces were falling into place. Every class, every connection, every late night studying. They were all steps toward my goal. My father had taught me well. In business, knowledge is power, and I was gathering both. My first day at Walsh Ventures started with a surprise. Patricia wasn't just any partner, she was the founding partner, and she had plans for me. Your desk, she said, gesturing to a space near her office. I want you close enough to learn. I set down my new laptop bag, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows and the Boston skyline beyond. A far cry from the cafe's cramped break room. First task? Patricia continued. We're reviewing pitches for a new AI startup accelerator. I want your analysis by lunch. As I dove into the work, a familiar face appeared at my desk. Shanice, the firm's rising star associate. So, you're Patricia's new protege, she said, perching on my desk edge. Heard about your corporate finance presentation. Gutsy move, criticizing that merger. I tensed. You know who I am. Please, she rolled her eyes. I make it my business to know everything about everyone. Don't worry, your secret's safe. But I have a proposition for you. Before she could continue, commotion erupted near the reception area. My blood ran cold as I recognized the voices. Martina, darling, the meeting's this way. My father's voice carried across the office. I ducked behind my monitor, but Shanice grabbed my arm. Don't hide, you've done nothing wrong. They rounded the corner, my father in his usual tailored suit, Martina draped in designer wear that probably cost more than my yearly salary. They stopped cold when they saw me. Lucille? My father's face darkened. What are you doing here? Working, I said, standing straight. Like everyone else. Martina's perfectly painted lips curved into a smirk. How quaint. From coffee shops to venture capital. Moving up in the world, aren't we? Ms. Delgado. Patricia's voice cut through the tension as she emerged from her office. I see you've met my star intern. Lucille's analysis of your merger was particularly insightful. The color drained from Martina's face. My father's jaw tightened. Patricia, he forced a smile. I didn't realize you were mentoring new talent. The best talent can come from unexpected places, Patricia replied smoothly. Now, shall we discuss your funding request? As they disappeared into the conference room, Shanice whistled low. Okay, that was intense. You okay? I realized my hands were shaking. I need air. On the building's rooftop garden, Shanice handed me a coffee from the executive lounge. So, about that proposition, I'm launching a tech startup. I need someone who understands corporate weaknesses and isn't afraid to exploit them. You want me to help you compete with my father's company? Better, she grinned. I want us to build something that could eventually acquire it. I stared at her. That's ambitious, says the girl who publicly dissected her father's merger strategy. Look, I've got the technical expertise and industry connections. You've got the insider knowledge and the motivation. Together, we could be dangerous. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother, who I hadn't heard from in months. Saw your father today. He's worried about what you might do. Be careful, sweetheart. I showed Shanice the message. Seems like I'm already dangerous enough. Good, she said, because this industry needs shaking up. You in? Back at my desk, I watched through the conference room's glass walls as Martina gestured animatedly about their expansion plans. Patricia caught my eye and gave a subtle head shake. The funding request wasn't going well. Rough meeting? I asked Patricia later as security escorted my father and Martina out. Let's just say their numbers didn't add up. She paused. You know, they're not as stable as they appear. The merger covered up some serious issues. I know, I said. That's why I'm joining Shanice's startup. Patricia's eyes sparkled. Good, because I'm gonna fund it. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, small but my own, paid for with my internship salary, and opened my laptop. On the screen, a business plan began to take shape. Not just any plan, but one that would target every weakness I discovered in my father's empire. My phone buzzed again, another text from Mom. Whatever you're planning, remember who you are. Don't let revenge change you. I thought about the girl I'd been a year ago, naive and trusting. She was gone, replaced by someone stronger, someone who understood that sometimes justice requires a strategic mind and a willingness to strike first. I won't let it change me, I texted back. I'll let it reveal me. Across the city, in their penthouse apartment, my father and Martina were probably discussing their failed funding meeting, unaware that their real problems were just beginning. They'd taught me an expensive lesson about trust and power. Now it was time to show them exactly how well I'd learned it. Your father's company just lost their biggest client, Shanice announced, bursting into our startup's new office space. 6 months had transformed our two-person operation into a team of 15, with Patricia's backing opening doors we'd only dreamed of. I looked up from my laptop. How bad? Bad enough that their stock dropped 12% in an hour. She pulled up the financial news on our conference room screen. Apparently, Martina's innovative strategy wasn't so innovative after all. Our own company, Phoenix Tech Solutions, had been quietly growing, specializing in the exact services my father's company was failing to provide. Every client they lost seemed to find their way to us, though few knew of my connection. Speaking of clients, Yosef called from his desk. I'd hired him as our operations manager the moment we could afford it. That pharmaceutical company you mentioned, they're interested in meeting. My phone rang. Patricia. Turn on CNBC, she said without preamble. Your father's giving a press conference. There he was, looking older than I remembered, with Martina by his side. Their usual confidence seemed strained. While recent setbacks have presented challenges, he was saying, we remain committed to our vision of innovation and excellence. Translation, Shanice snorted. They're in deep trouble and trying to stop investors from jumping ship. Did you see their quarterly report? I asked Patricia. Just finished reviewing it. They're one bad quarter away from a crisis. Your father's betting everything on a new security platform launch next month. I smiled. The one with the critical firmware flaw? How did you? Never mind, I don't want to know. But yes, that one. After hanging up, I found Shanice staring at me. You knew about the flaw? Let's just say I have reliable sources. I'd been cultivating relationships with former employees my father had discarded over the years. Amazing what people would share over coffee and sympathy. We could warn them, Yosef suggested, ever the voice of conscience. Like they warned me before stealing my trust fund? I shook my head. They made their choices. That afternoon, I had lunch with Mom at her favorite cafe. She looked better than she had in years, finally free from my father's shadow. I saw the news, she said, stirring her tea. He called me, asked if I knew anything about your new company. What did you tell him? That he should have thought about consequences before betraying his own daughter. She reached for my hand. Just promise me something. When you make your move, make it clean. Don't drag it out like he did with us. Mom, don't pretend this isn't what you've been planning. I know you, Lucille. You're my daughter, but you're also his. You learned strategy at his knee. Back at the office, Shanice was waiting with more news. Their security platform? 3 major clients just backed out of pre-orders. Apparently, someone leaked information about potential vulnerabilities. What a shame, I said, not bothering to hide my smile. Any word on their stock price? Down another 8%. But here's the interesting part. Martina's been selling her shares. Quietly, but not quietly enough. I raised an eyebrow. Rats leaving the sinking ship? More like rats trying to cash out before the ship even starts taking on water. That evening, as I was leaving the office, I ran into Martina in the building's lobby. She'd aged in the past year, stress lines evident despite her expensive makeup. "Enjoying the view?" she asked bitterly, gesturing at the Phoenix Tech Solutions sign being installed above our office door. "Just admiring the results of hard work," I replied. "Something you might want to try sometime." "You think you're so clever," she hissed, stepping closer. "But you have no idea what you're dealing with." "Actually, I do. Tell me, does my father know you've been selling your shares? Or about the offshore account you've been funneling money into?" Her face went pale. "How did you—" "Like you said, I'm clever. Here's some free advice. Get out while you can. What's coming next won't be pretty." As she hurried away, my phone buzzed with a text from Shanice. "Meeting with their former lead developer tomorrow. Says he has something we need to see." I typed back, "Perfect timing." That night, I stood at my apartment window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, my father was probably in his office, trying to save his crumbling empire. He'd taught me that business was like chess. Always think several moves ahead. What he hadn't taught me was that sometimes the best revenge isn't a single devastating blow, but 1,000 tiny cuts, each one precisely placed to cause maximum damage. The game was entering its final phase, and I had all the pieces exactly where I wanted them. "They're desperate enough to consider selling," Patricia announced, dropping a thick folder on my desk. "Your father's board is pushing for a buyout before the stock price falls any further." I flipped through the documents, financial reports, internal memos, everything we needed. "And you're sure about this?" 3 board members approached me personally. She smiled. "They have no idea you're involved with Phoenix. Your father's been keeping your success very quiet." Shanice burst into my office, laptop in hand. "Their security platform launch? Complete disaster. 2 major vulnerabilities discovered in the first hour. Their stock is in free fall." My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "He's calling an emergency board meeting. It's time." I looked at Patricia. "How quickly can we put together a buyout offer?" "Give me 2 hours." The next few hours were a blur of meetings, calls, and paperwork. By evening, our offer was ready. Fair but firm, with conditions that would effectively remove both my father and Martina from any operational control. "Ready?" Shanice asked as we prepared to enter the conference room where my father's board was waiting. I straightened my jacket. I've been ready for this moment for 2 years. The room fell silent as we entered. My father's face went from confused to furious as he recognized me. "What is this?" he demanded. "This," I said, placing our offer on the table, "is your way out of the mess you've created." One of the board members, Harold, who'd known me since childhood, picked up the document. "Phoenix Tech Solutions. You're behind Phoenix?" "She's the CEO and majority shareholder," Patricia confirmed, stepping into the room, "and she's offering you a lifeline." Martina laughed, but it sounded hollow. "This is ridiculous. You can't seriously be considering an offer from—" "Your stock price has dropped 60% in 3 months," I cut in. "Your major clients are jumping ship. Your new platform is a security nightmare. And," I turned to the board, "your CSO has been quietly selling her shares while telling everyone else to hold." The room erupted in chaos. Board members turned to stare at Martina, who had gone pale. "This is a hostile takeover," my father snarled. "No," I corrected him. "This is karma. You taught me everything I know about business, remember? Including how to recognize when someone's vulnerable." Harold cleared his throat. "The offer appears quite reasonable, actually. More than fair given our current situation." "You can't be serious," my father started, but another board member cut him off. "Israel, we need to consider this. The company won't survive another quarter like this one. I watched my father's face as reality sank in. He turned to Martina for support, but she was already gathering her things. I need to make some calls, she mumbled, hurrying from the room. She's running to move more money offshore, I announced to the room. You might want to freeze those accounts before she empties them completely. 2 hours later, the preliminary agreement was signed. My father sat alone at the conference table, staring at the papers. Why? He asked as everyone else filed out. You could have destroyed us completely. Why offer a buyout at all? Because I learned from your mistakes, I replied. You taught me that business is about power, but you forgot about legacy. This company was built by people who believed in it. They deserve better than watching it burn for your ego. And Martina? Already gone. She cleared out her office while we were signing the papers. Turns out she's been planning her exit strategy for months. He looked suddenly old, defeated. I lost everything. No, I corrected him. You threw everything away. There's a difference. Outside the conference room, Shanice was waiting with a bottle of champagne. We did it. Not yet, I said. We still have to fix everything they broke. But first, I pulled out my phone. I need to make a call. Mom answered on the first ring. Is it done? Yes. How would you like to come back as head of the charitable foundation? The one he pushed you out of? Her laugh was worth everything. Sweetheart, I thought you'd never ask. That night, as we celebrated in our office, Yosef raised his glass. To Phoenix rising from the ashes. To karma, Shanice added. To family, Mom said, squeezing my hand. I looked around at these people who had stood by me, who had believed in me when I had nothing. To second chances, I said, and to learning from our enemies. Somewhere across town, my father was probably sitting in his empty penthouse, wondering how his perfect world had crumbled so completely. But I wasn't thinking about him anymore. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, merging companies, rebuilding trust, creating something better from the ashes of his mistakes. For the first time in 2 years, revenge wasn't on my mind. The future was. The financial audit results are worse than we thought, Shanice said, spreading documents across my new office, my father's old office. Martina didn't just embezzle funds, she created an entire shadow accounting system. How bad? I asked, though the grim expressions around the conference table told me enough. 8 figures, Patricia replied, spread across various offshore accounts. The good news? We've frozen most of them. The bad news? The press got wind of it. Right on cue, my phone lit up with notifications. The story was breaking across all major business news outlets. Tech giant's former CSO accused of massive fraud. Your father's being questioned by the SEC, Yosef added, looking up from his tablet. They want to know how much he knew. Mom appeared in the doorway, looking concerned. Lucille, you need to see this. She handed me her phone. A video was playing. My father leaving the SEC building, surrounded by reporters. He looked haggard, destroyed. Mr. Craig, did you know about your wife's illegal activities? Was this connected to your daughter's takeover? Is it true Martina Delgado has fled the country? Turn it off, I said quietly. Despite everything, seeing him like this brought no satisfaction. There's more, Mom said. He's asking to meet with you. Says it's important. The room fell silent. Everyone knew what this meant. The first direct contact since the takeover 3 weeks ago. You don't have to see him, Shanice said protectively. Yes, I do. I stood up. Set it up for this afternoon, in the small conference room. I'll be right outside if you need me, Yosef offered. The hours crawled by. At exactly 3, my father walked in, escorted by security. He'd aged years in weeks, his confident stride replaced by a weary shuffle. You wanted to see me? I kept my voice neutral. I need to tell you something. He sat heavily. About Martina, about everything. I already know about the fraud. No, he cut in. You don't know everything. When I met her, I was lost. Your mother and I were struggling, and Martina seemed to understand me. But she was playing me from the start. He pulled out a USB drive. This contains everything: bank records, emails, conversations she recorded. She was planning to use it against me if I ever turned on her. But you deserve to know the truth. I stared at the drive. Why are you giving me this? Because you won, he said simply. But more than that, you won fairly. You built something real while we were just creating illusions. I was blind, Lucille. Blind to what I had, blind to what I lost, blind to who you really are. And now? Now I'm facing federal charges. My wife has disappeared with millions, and my daughter. He smiled sadly. My daughter turned out to be smarter and stronger than I ever imagined. Before I could respond, Shanice burst in. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a situation. Martina's been found. Where? We both asked simultaneously. Singapore. Local authorities just arrested her trying to access one of the frozen accounts. They're extraditing her back to face charges. My father slumped in his chair. It's over then. Not quite, I said, picking up the USB drive. We still have to fix what you both broke. That evening, after the lawyers had gone through the drive's contents and added them to the mounting evidence, I found Mom in her new office. She was organizing plans for the foundation's relaunch. You okay? She asked, seeing my expression. I thought I'd feel different, I admitted. More satisfied, maybe. Instead, I just feel tired, she suggested. That's what revenge does, sweetheart. It takes more than it gives. My phone buzzed. A message from Patricia. Board approved your restructuring plan. Ready when you are. So, what now? Mom asked. I showed her the message. Now we rebuild. Not just the company, but everything. We do it right this time. Later, walking through the quiet office, I passed my father's old photos, now replaced with our new team pictures. Shanice was organizing tomorrow's announcements. Yosef was finalizing the new organizational chart, and everywhere, people were working late not out of fear, but excitement for what we were creating. My phone buzzed again. An email from my father's lawyer. He was pleading guilty to reduced charges in exchange for his cooperation against Martina. His last line read, "He wanted you to know first." Standing at the window where he used to stand, I watched the city lights flicker on. The empire he'd built had crumbled, but from its ashes, something stronger was emerging. Something built on truth, not lies, on collaboration, not fear. Ready to head out? Shanice called from the door. The team's grabbing dinner to celebrate the restructuring approval. I took one last look at the city. Yes, I said, turning away from the window. I'm ready. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when Martina arrived for her sentencing. I watched from my car as she climbed the stairs, designer outfit replaced by a modest suit, her face drawn and pale. You don't have to be here, Shanice said from the driver's seat. The lawyers can handle it. Yes, I do. I checked my phone, a message from my father's lawyer, 15 minutes until his testimony. Inside, the courtroom was packed. My father sat in the witness box, looking smaller than I remembered. When Martina entered, their eyes met briefly before both looked away. You may proceed, the judge said. My father cleared his throat. I met Martina at a tech conference in 2019. She presented herself as a successful consultant, but it was all fabricated. Her company existed only on paper. And when did you become aware of her fraudulent activities? The prosecutor asked. After the merger. But by then, he glanced at me in the gallery. I was too proud to admit I'd been conned, too ashamed to face what I'd done to my family for a lie. Martina's lawyer jumped up. Objection. The witness is overruled. The judge cut in. Continue, Mr. Craig. For the next hour, my father detailed everything: the fake contracts, the hidden accounts, the manipulated records. With each revelation, Martina seemed to shrink further into herself. During a recess, Mom found me in the hallway. You're doing the right thing being here. Am I? Sometimes I wonder if I should have just walked away, started fresh somewhere else, and let them keep hurting people. She squeezed my hand. You did what needed to be done. Back in the courtroom, Martina's lawyer was making a last-ditch attempt to paint her as a victim of circumstance. It wasn't working. The defendant knowingly and systematically defrauded investors, the prosecutor countered. She stole not just money, but trust. The judge's verdict was swift: 8 years plus restitution. As they led Martina away, she stopped beside me. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've destroyed everything. No, I replied calmly. You did that yourself. I just exposed the truth. Outside, reporters swarmed around us. Ms. Craig, how does it feel to see your former stepmother convicted? Will Phoenix Tech be able to recover the stolen funds? Any comment on your father's testimony? Shanice stepped in, shielding me. Ms. Craig has no comment at this time. Please direct all questions to our legal team. Back at the office, Yosef was waiting with updates. Stocks up 12% since the verdict. Investors are calling it a new era of transparency. And the restructuring? I asked. Ahead of schedule. The team's actually excited about the changes. Oh, and your father's lawyer called. He wants to know if you'll meet with him one last time before he reports to serve his reduced sentence. I hesitated. Where? The old house, tomorrow morning. The next day, I drove up to my childhood home. My father was in the garden, the place Mom had loved so much before everything fell apart. Thank you for coming, he said, looking up from a rose bush. I wanted you to have this. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter, dated the day before I discovered his affair. A letter to his lawyers, instructing them to transfer majority control of the company to me on my next birthday. I was going to give you everything anyway, he said quietly. Before Martina, before I lost my way. You were always meant to lead this company. Why show me this now? Because you deserve to know that I believed in you, even then. What you've built, how you've led. It's better than anything I ever did. Dad, let me finish. I'm going away for 2 years. When I come back, I won't interfere. The company is yours, rightfully earned. Just take care of your mother, and maybe someday. Someday, I nodded, understanding the unspoken request for future forgiveness. That evening, I sat in my office, earned through work and determination, not given by birthright. Shanice and Yosef were arguing good-naturedly about the new project timeline. Mom was down the hall, revitalizing her foundation. Everything was different, yet somehow right. My phone buzzed, a text from Patricia. Dinner tonight? We should discuss Phoenix's next chapter. I looked out at the city, the same view that had once represented my father's power. Now it represented possibility, potential, and most importantly, truth. On my way, I texted back. The past was settled. It was time to focus on the future. The board meeting will begin in 5 minutes, Yosef announced, poking his head into my office. Everyone's waiting. I gathered my papers, pausing at the mirror to straighten my blazer. Through the glass walls, I could see the familiar faces filing into the conference room. Shanice, Patricia, Mom, and the board members who had stayed through the transition. Ready? Shanice asked, falling into step beside me. This is a big one. It's time, I nodded. They deserve to know. The room quieted as I took my place at the head of the table. These quarterly meetings had become a symbol of our company's transformation. Transparent, collaborative, focused on growth rather than power plays. Before we begin, I said, I want to share something personal. I pulled up a familiar image on the screen, the old company logo from my father's days. When I took over this company, many of you expected me to erase every trace of the past. But that would have been a mistake. Murmurs rippled through the room. Instead, we learned from it. We built something stronger. I clicked to the next slide, our current numbers. Our stock has tripled. Employee satisfaction is at record highs. Our new security platform is revolutionizing the industry. And now, Shanice added, we're about to announce the biggest initiative in company history. I nodded to Mom, who stood up. The Phoenix Foundation will be launching a scholarship program for underprivileged students interested in tech. Full ride, plus internships, funded entirely by company profits. But that's not all, I continued. We're also establishing an ethics board to oversee all major decisions, because power unchecked is power corrupted. Harold, the veteran board member, cleared his throat. Your father called me yesterday, from prison. The room tensed. I kept my voice steady. What did he want? To say he's proud of all of this, of you. Before I could respond, my assistant rushed in. Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. In the lobby stood Patricia's daughter, Sarah, clutching a laptop. You need to see this, she said, opening it. Someone's trying to hack our new platform. I smiled. I know, it's a test. Her eyes widened. What? Watch. I pulled up our security dashboard on the lobby screen. Lines of code flowed across it, showing the attack and our system's response. Every attempt they make reveals another weakness, which our AI patches in real time. That's brilliant, she breathed. That's what happens when you build something on truth instead of lies. I turned to find Shanice watching us. Ready to show her the rest? Back in the conference room, we unveiled the full scope of our plans. Not just scholarships and ethics boards, but a complete reimagining of what a tech company could be. Transparent, accountable, human. There's one more thing, I announced. I'm stepping back from day-to-day operations. Gasps filled the room. Not leaving, I clarified quickly. But it's time for new voices. Shanice will be taking over as CEO. I'll remain as board chair, focusing on strategy and mentorship. Like Patricia did for you, Mom said softly. Exactly. Because that's how we break the cycle. Not by hoarding power, but by sharing it. Not by fear, but by trust. Later, as the sun set over Boston, I found myself in the rooftop garden where this journey had really begun, where Shanice had first proposed building something that could challenge my father's empire. Quite a day, Yosef said, joining me. You okay? Better than okay. I showed him my phone, an email from the prison. My father had enrolled in a business ethics course, teaching it, not taking it. Sometimes people can surprise you. Speaking of surprises, Shanice called from the door. Your mother's foundation just received an anonymous donation, $10 million. Martina's restitution money, I realized. She finally paid it back. Full circle, Mom said, appearing with glasses of champagne. But this time, it's going to help people instead of hurt them. We stood there, watching the city lights flicker on. The same view that had once represented everything I'd lost. Now it showed everything we'd built instead. To Phoenix, Shanice raised her glass. Not just rising from the ashes, but soaring beyond them. To family, Mom added, the ones we're born with and the ones we choose. To the future, Yosef said. I looked at these people who had become more than colleagues, more than friends. They were my true legacy. Not the money, not the revenge, not even the success. Just this, the power of truth, the strength of trust, and the endless possibility of beginning again. To beginning again, I said, raising my glass to meet theirs. And getting it right this time,
My phone buzzed with Mia's text just as I was finishing up at work. Family dinner tonight. Bringing someone special. Don't be late. The exclamation point mocked me through the screen. My sister's definition of special usually meant trouble. I'm Isla, and I should have known better than to show up that night. The drive to my parents' house felt longer than usual, each traffic light conspiring to stretch out the inevitable family drama that awaited. Mia's special someone announcements had become a running joke, a parade of increasingly questionable boyfriends that our mother pretended to like and our father silently judged from behind his newspaper. The familiar scent of Mom's lasagna hit me as I walked through the door. Everything seemed normal at first, Dad in his usual spot at the head of the table, Mom fussing over the garlic bread. Mia's voice carrying from the living room. Then I heard it. That laugh. Deep, familiar, impossible. Ryan's laugh. My feet wouldn't move. The room tilted slightly as I stood there, purse still clutched in my hand. While my ex-boyfriend of 3 months walked into view with my baby sister's hand in his. Isla. Mia squealed, bouncing over to hug me. You made it. Look who I brought. Ryan had the decency to look uncomfortable, at least. His hand went to the back of his neck, that nervous tell I used to find endearing. Hey, Isla. What is this? The words came out barely above a whisper. Mom appeared beside me, wiping her hands on her apron. Sweetheart, why don't you sit down? The lasagna's getting cold. Did everyone know about this? I looked around the room, taking in the careful expressions, the avoided gazes. How long? We wanted to tell you properly, Mia started, her smile faltering. It just happened. We didn't plan it. Didn't plan it? I repeated, my voice rising. What exactly didn't you plan, Mia? Running into my ex-boyfriend? Dating him? Bringing him to family dinner like some sick surprise? Now, Isla, Dad finally spoke up, folding his newspaper. Let's not make a scene. A scene? I laughed, and it sounded strange even to my own ears. Oh, I'm sorry. Is finding out my sister is dating the man I was with for 2 years making you uncomfortable? Ryan stepped forward. Maybe we should talk about this privately. Don't. I held up my hand. Don't you dare try to be reasonable right now. How long? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. Mia's fingers twisted together, another tell, one we shared. 2 months, she finally admitted. 2 months. Which meant they'd started seeing each other just weeks after Ryan and I broke up. Maybe even before. Dinner's ready, Mom announced with forced cheerfulness. Everyone sit down, please. It'll all look better after we eat. I'm not hungry. I turned toward the door, then stopped. Turned back. Smiled at my sister. Congratulations, Mia. You always did want everything I had. Isla, please, Mia reached for me, but I stepped away. No, really. I hope you're happy together. Just remember something. I met Ryan's eyes. Everything that's yours now? Used to be mine. Every story, every secret, every little thing he thinks makes him special, I knew it first. Enjoy my leftovers. I walked out, letting the door slam behind me. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, watching the warm light spill from my parents' windows. Through the glass, I could see them settling around the table, adjusting to my absence like they always did when Mia created chaos. My phone buzzed again. A text from Mom, she's still your sister. I stared at those words until they blurred. Yes, Mia was still my sister. And that's exactly why this betrayal cut so deep. That's exactly why she needed to learn what it felt like to lose everything she cared about. I started the car, my mind already spinning with possibilities. If Mia wanted to play games, I'd show her how it's done. After all, no one knows your weaknesses better than family. 3 days of silence felt like a lifetime. My phone lit up constantly with messages from Mom, each one more desperate than the last. I deleted them all without reading. Dad, true to form, hadn't reached out at all. The office became my sanctuary until Claire from accounting ruined even that. Did you hear about the new project manager? She leaned over my cubicle wall, coffee mug in hand. Apparently, he's dating someone in marketing. My fingers froze over the keyboard. What? Ryan Mitchell? Started last week? Claire's eyes widened. Oh God, I thought you knew. He's been assigned to our team. The fluorescent lights suddenly seemed too bright. Ryan. Here. Working in my building, probably taking the same elevator, breathing the same recycled air. I grabbed my phone, scrolling through the company announcements I'd been ignoring. There it was. Ryan Mitchell, new project manager, marketing division. My office phone rang, making me jump. Mom's number flashed on the display. I let it go to voicemail, but she called right back. What? I snapped, finally answering. Isla, please come over for dinner tonight. Her voice carried that familiar mix of hope and resignation. Your father and I need to talk to you. About what? How to be happy for the happy couple. About being a family. She paused. Mia won't be here. Just us. I should have said no. Should have maintained my wall of silence. Instead, I heard myself agreeing. The house looked exactly the same when I arrived, Mom's perfectly maintained roses, Dad's newspaper on the porch swing. As if nothing had changed. As if my sister hadn't taken a wrecking ball to my life. You look tired, Mom said, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. Dad stood in the doorway, hands in his pockets. Come in. Your mother made pot roast. The dining room felt smaller than I remembered. We sat in our usual places, the empty chair between Mom and me screaming Mia's absence. We're worried about you, Mom started, passing the potatoes. Both of you. Both of us? I stabbed a carrot with my fork. That's rich. How's Mia doing? Still playing house with my ex? She's miserable, Dad said quietly. And so are you. Good. Isla. Mom set down her fork. What happened between you and Ryan, it's complicated. But destroying your relationship with your sister won't fix anything. I laughed. Complicated? He's working in my building now. Did you know that? Did Mia arrange that too? Their shared look told me everything. She did, didn't she? The realization hit like ice water. She got him the job. Through Uncle James in HR. She thought. Mom trailed off. She thought what? That having him around would make it easier? That we could all be one big happy family? Dad cleared his throat. Your sister made a mistake. A mistake is burning dinner. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. This? I pushed my plate away. This is a choice. And now I get to make mine. What does that mean? Mom's voice sharpened with worry. I stood up, smoothing my skirt. It means I'm done pretending this is something we can fix over pot roast. Mia wants to play games? Fine. But she forgot something important. What's that? Dad asked, though his expression suggested he already knew. I've been watching her games our whole lives. I know all her moves. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mom? You might want to ask her about Uncle James's recommendation letter. The one she forged last year for her internship. Wouldn't want that getting out, would we? Isla, please, Mom started. But I was already gone, the satisfaction of their shocked faces warming me more than any family dinner could. Mia had always been the family favorite, the golden child who could do no wrong. Time to tarnish that gold a little. My phone buzzed as I reached my car. A text from Ryan, we need to talk. I smiled, deleting the message. Oh, we would talk. Just not in the way he expected. After all, I had 2 years' worth of secrets about both of them, and plenty of time to decide how to use them. The coffee shop across from my office became my surveillance post. Every morning, I watched Ryan walk into the building, sometimes alone, sometimes with Mia. Today was different. Today, I had proof. Sarah from IT had come through. The email thread displayed on my phone made my hands shake, messages between Ryan and Mia dating back to when he and I were still together. Sweet nothings. Secret meetups. Plans. Your usual? The barista's voice startled me. No. I stood up, gathering my things. I'm done here. The elevator ride to the marketing floor felt eternal. Each ding marked another floor, another moment to reconsider what I was about to do. But the weight of my phone in my pocket, heavy with evidence, pushed me forward. Ryan's new office had a glass wall. He sat at his desk, talking on the phone, looking exactly like he had when he'd sit in my apartment, planning our future. Our future that had become his and Mia's present. I knocked. He looked up, face shifting from surprise to wariness. I'll call you back, he said into the phone. Busy day? I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. Isla, this isn't a good time. When did it start? I pulled out my phone, sliding it across his desk. Before or after you told me you needed space? He glanced at the screen, color draining from his face. How did you get these? Does it matter? Answer the question. It's complicated. I laughed, the sound sharp enough to make him flinch. Try me. I'm pretty good with complicated these days. We never meant to. 3 months. I cut him off. That's how long before our breakup these messages start. 3 months of lying to my face while sleeping with my sister. He stood up, reaching for me. That's not how it happened. We never. Don't touch me. I stepped back. You know what's funny? I actually believed you when you said you needed time to find yourself. I respected that. Meanwhile, you were finding yourself in my sister's bed. Keep your voice down, he hissed, glancing at the glass wall where curious faces had started to gather. Why? Worried about your reputation? Don't worry, I'm not here to make a scene. I pulled out a USB drive. I'm here to give you a choice. What choice? You can either tell Mia the truth about everything, including Jessica from accounting last month, or I can forward these emails to HR. I'm sure they'd love to know how their new project manager conducts himself. His jaw clenched. You're bluffing. Try me. Oh, and those drinks you had with Jessica? I have pictures. Mia might be interested in those too. This isn't you, Isla. You're better than this. I was better than this. Then my sister and my boyfriend decided I wasn't worth basic human decency. I headed for the door, then turned back. You have until tomorrow. Choose wisely. In the hallway, my composure cracked. I made it to the bathroom just in time to throw up, hands shaking as I gripped the cold porcelain. My phone buzzed, Mia calling. Again. 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 Finally, I answered. What? Mom told me what you said about the recommendation letter. Her voice trembled. You wouldn't. Wouldn't I? You didn't think I'd find out about you and Ryan either, but here we are. Please, Isla. That internship is everything to me. If they find out. If they find out what? That perfect Mia is a fraud? That she forges documents and steals boyfriends? Silence stretched between us, heavy with years of competition and resentment. I loved him first, she whispered. The words hit like a physical blow. What? In college. When you first brought him home. I loved him first, but he chose you. He always chose you. I ended the call, sliding down the bathroom wall as the implications sank in. 4 years. She'd wanted him for 4 years, watching us, waiting. Playing the supportive sister while plotting. My phone buzzed again, a text from Ryan, we need to talk. About everything. I smiled through tears, typing back, too late. The game had changed. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about unraveling 4 years of lies, and I was just getting started. Mom's garden always bloomed earliest on our street. Today, her roses seemed to mock me as I stood at the door, letter in hand. I'd driven by 3 times before finally parking, the weight of what I was about to do sitting heavy in my chest. The doorbell chimed. No answer. I pressed it again, knowing she was home. Her car sat in the driveway, blue paint dulled by pollen. I saw you through the window, I called out. We need to talk. The door opened. Mom looked older somehow, circles under her eyes darker than I remembered. About what? More threats. About this. I held up the envelope. Found it while cleaning out my old desk. Remember when Mia asked me to proofread her college application essay? Her face changed, understanding dawning. Isla, don't. I kept it. The original version. The one before she rewrote it completely. Claiming Dad had abandoned us for 6 months when we were kids. I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Funny how that never happened, right? Your sister was desperate to stand out in her applications. She got into Princeton with that essay. Full scholarship. I dropped the envelope on the coffee table. Built her whole college career on a lie about our family. About Dad. Mom sank into her armchair, hands trembling slightly. What do you want? I want the truth. About everything. I remained standing, needing the height advantage. Did you know about her and Ryan? Before? Her silence answered for her. How long? Isla, please. How long? She picked up her tea, took a sip. Set it down again. Since Christmas. I saw them in the kitchen when everyone else was opening presents. The memory hit hard, me showing off my new engagement ring while my sister and boyfriend were sneaking moments behind my back. In our family home. During Christmas. That's why you weren't surprised when he called off the engagement in January. I tried to talk to her, Mom said quietly. She said it was real this time. That she'd loved him since college. And that made it okay? My voice cracked. Because she loved him longer, she deserved him more. No one deserved this pain. She stood up, reaching for me. But destroying her life won't fix yours. I stepped back. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just telling the truth. Like I'm going to tell Dad about that essay. He'll never forgive her. Maybe he shouldn't. I headed for the door, then stopped. Oh, and that recommendation letter she forged? I sent copies to the university board this morning. They're launching an investigation into her degree. You didn't. Mom's face went pale. Isla, that will ruin her career. Everything she's worked for. Everything she's lied for, I corrected. Actions have consequences, Mom. Isn't that what you always taught us? My phone buzzed, Ryan calling again. I declined it, but not before Mom saw his name. He's been trying to explain, she said softly. Maybe you should listen. Like you listened when you saw them together at Christmas? When you watched me plan a wedding while my sister and fiancé sneaked around behind my back? The silence stretched between us, filled with years of chosen blindness and careful lies. I'm tired of being the only honest person in this family, I said finally. So now everyone gets to face their truth. Even you. What does that mean? I pulled out my phone, showed her the screen. Dad's been copying me on all his emails since the dinner disaster. Including the ones about his private investigator. The one looking into your weekly tennis lessons that aren't actually tennis lessons. Her sharp intake of breath confirmed everything. Guess Mia learned from the best, didn't she? I opened the door. Family dinner should be interesting this week. If anyone still shows up. Walking back to my car, I felt hollow rather than triumphant. My phone buzzed again, a text from Mia, "Please stop. We need to talk. There's something you don't know." I started the engine, ignoring the message. Whatever secret she was holding onto, whatever explanation she thought would fix this, it was too late. The dominoes were falling, and I'd made sure they'd take everyone down with them. Grandma Rose's antique china gleamed under the dining room lights. Mom always saved it for special occasions, birthdays, holidays, and apparently, family implosions. The annual Thompson family dinner felt more like a powder keg waiting for a spark. Dad sat at the head of the table, scanning his phone with unusual intensity. Mom's hands shook slightly as she arranged the silverware. Uncle James and Aunt Patricia whispered in the corner, stealing glances at me. Everyone knew something was coming. They just didn't know what. Mia arrived last, Ryan trailing behind her like a shadow. The bruises under her eyes matched Mom's now. "You came," Mia said, voice small. I smiled, raising my wine glass. Wouldn't miss it. The first course passed in artificial pleasantries. Uncle James praised Ryan's work performance. Aunt Patricia commented on Mom's new curtains. Dad kept checking his phone. "Actually," I set down my fork, "I have an announcement." Mom's knife clattered against her plate. "Isla, please. I've accepted a position in London." The lie rolled off my tongue smoothly. "I'm leaving next week." Mia's head snapped up. "What?" "But before I go, I thought we should clear the air. Get everything out in the open." I pulled out a folder. "Dad, remember that investigation you started?" The color drained from Mom's face. "Isla, don't," Mia whispered. "Why not? Isn't honesty important?" I turned to Uncle James. "Like being honest about professional recommendations? Or college applications?" Ryan reached for Mia's hand. The gesture made my stomach turn. "What investigation?" Dad finally spoke, putting down his phone. "The one that revealed Mom's tennis instructor is actually a real estate agent named David." I slid the photos across the table. "They've been house hunting together. Among other things." The silence was deafening. "While we're sharing," I continued, "Mia's Princeton essay about Dad abandoning us. Complete fiction. And that recommendation letter that landed her dream job? Forged with Uncle James's letterhead." "That's enough," Ryan stood up. "Oh, I'm just getting started." I pulled out my phone. "Should we discuss the Christmas affair? Or wait, here's a better one. Ryan, tell them about Jessica from accounting." Mia's hand fell from his. "What?" "Isla, stop," Mom pleaded. "Why? Isn't this what family dinners are for? Sharing news?" I stood up, watching their faces crumble. Like how Ryan was sleeping with both of us before the engagement ended. Or how Mom's been planning to leave Dad for months. Dad's chair scraped back. Without a word, he walked out. The front door slammed behind him. "How could you?" Mia's voice broke. "How could I? How could you?" The words burst out, raw and ragged. "You were my sister. I am your sister. No." I grabbed my purse. Sisters don't destroy each other's lives. But hey, at least now everyone knows exactly who they're dealing with. I headed for the door, but Ryan blocked my path. "This isn't just about them anymore. You're destroying yourself too. Move. Not until you listen. There's something you need to know." A crash made us both turn. Mom had collapsed, china shattered around her feet. Aunt Patricia rushed to help while Uncle James called an ambulance. Mia grabbed my arm, fingers digging in. "Are you happy now? Is this enough revenge for you?" I pulled away, but her next words stopped me cold. "Mom has cancer. Stage 4. Those house hunting trips? They're for a smaller place, closer to the treatment center. She didn't want anyone to know until after your wedding." Then everything happened with Ryan, and The room tilted. Through the window, I could see Dad sitting in his car, head in his hands. Behind me, Mom sobbed quietly while Aunt Patricia picked up broken china. My perfect revenge had just shattered everything, including the truth I thought I knew. The London job is a lie, Mia said quietly. You're running away because you know you've gone too far. But you can't take this back, Isla. Some things break for good. I walked out into the night, leaving behind the ruins of my handiwork. My phone buzzed, a message from the university board confirming Mia's investigation. One click and I could complete my revenge. Instead, I turned off my phone and drove, the taste of victory turning to ash in my mouth. The hospital corridor stretched endlessly, each step echoing with the weight of what I'd done. 3 days since the dinner. 3 days of silence broken only by beeping monitors and hushed conversations outside Mom's room. I hadn't gone in yet. Couldn't. Coffee? Ryan appeared beside me, holding out a paper cup. I hadn't seen him approach. Why are you still here? Someone should be. He set the cup down on a nearby chair. Mia's meeting with the university board. Dad's. Wherever Dad is. And you're out here, haunting the hallway. Don't pretend you care. I do care. That's the problem, isn't it? He leaned against the wall. I care about both of you. Always have. Is that what you told Jessica too? His jaw tightened. You want the truth? Jessica was a mistake. One night of feeling sorry for myself after Mia told me she was pregnant. The words hit like a physical blow. What? She lost it. 2 weeks ago. Didn't want anyone to know, especially you. He pushed off the wall. Congratulations, Isla. Your revenge just keeps getting better. I slid down the wall, legs giving out. Through the window of Mom's room, I could see her sleeping, smaller somehow against the white sheets. My phone buzzed, a message from Dad, signed the divorce papers. Don't tell your mother yet. She doesn't need more stress. Another buzz, the university board, investigation concluded. Degree revoked effective immediately. The victories I'd wanted so badly tasted like poison now. Isla. Mom's voice, weak but clear, carried from her room. I looked up to find her watching me through the window. My feet carried me inside before I could stop them. The smell of antiseptic and illness wrapped around me like a shroud. I'm sorry, I whispered. For what? She patted the bed beside her. For exposing my affair? For destroying your sister's career? For breaking your father's heart? Or for becoming exactly what you hated in others? Each word landed like a knife. I didn't know about everything. Would it have mattered? She coughed, and I reached for her water. You wanted revenge more than you wanted truth. They betrayed me. And now you've betrayed yourself. She gripped my hand, her fingers cold. I raised you better than this. Did you? You taught us to lie. To hide. To pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. I taught you to protect each other. Her grip tightened. Instead, you're tearing each other apart. The door opened. Mia stood there, eyes red, clutching papers. The university's logo gleamed at the top. It's done, she said flatly. They took everything. My degree, my job. Everything I worked for. Mia. Don't. She stepped inside, closing the door. You won. Are you happy now? Mom's monitor beeped faster. Girls, please. I didn't know about the baby, I said quietly. Mia's face crumpled. No, you didn't. You didn't know about a lot of things. But you didn't care enough to ask, did you? It was easier to destroy than understand. I understand betrayal. You understand nothing. She moved to Mom's other side. Ryan loved you. I loved you. But you couldn't see past your own pain long enough to see ours. Mom's grip went slack. The monitor's rhythm changed. Mom? Mia's voice sharpened with fear. Alarms started blaring. Medical staff rushed in, pushing us aside. Words like pressure dropping and code blue filled the air. In the chaos, I caught a glimpse of Dad in the doorway, watching. Our eyes met for a moment before he turned and walked away. Mia and I ended up in the hallway again, watching through the window as doctors fought to stabilize our mother. The space between us felt infinite. If she dies, Mia said softly, it's not just on you. It's on all of us. But you're the only one who chose this path. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain. But there was nothing left to say. I'd won every battle and lost everything that mattered. The alarms kept screaming, and all I could do was watch the consequences of my victory unfold. The hospital chapel smelled of stale flowers and desperation. Mom had stabilized, but the doctor's words hung heavy, touch and go, critical condition, next 24 hours. I sat in the back pew, watching dust motes dance in the colored light from the stained glass. The door creaked. Mia's footsteps echoed on the stone floor. I found Mom's journal, she said, sitting 3 pews ahead. In her hospital bag. You should read it. Why? Because you think you know everything. She placed a worn leather notebook on the bench beside her. But you don't know anything. I moved forward, 1 pew at a time, like approaching a wild animal. What's in it? The truth. About Christmas. About Ryan. About everything. She stood, turning to face me. About why I couldn't tell you I was pregnant. My hand froze over the journal. You could have told me anything. Could I? Her laugh was hollow. Like you told me about the engagement before announcing it at Christmas? Or about moving to London with him after the wedding? What? Read it. She pushed the journal toward me. Page 43. The pages crackled as I found the date, December 23rd, last year. Mom's elegant handwriting filled the page. Gisla's planning to surprise everyone with her engagement at Christmas dinner. She and Ryan are moving to London in the spring. Mia broke down when she found out. Said she's been in love with him since college, but stayed quiet for her sister's happiness. My vision blurred. You knew about London? Ryan told me. After I kissed him at Thanksgiving. Mia wrapped her arms around herself. I was drunk and stupid and hurting. He pushed me away, said he loved you. But something changed after that. He started seeing me differently. So you took advantage of that? No. I stayed away. Until Christmas, when you announced the engagement and London in front of everyone. Her voice cracked. You were taking him away forever, and I hadn't even had a chance to. To what? To steal him? To get over him. The words exploded between us. I spent years watching you live my dream. Being the perfect daughter, the successful sister, getting the man I loved. Do you know what that's like? Poor Mia. Always the victim. No. I'm not the victim. I'm the villain. I know that. She stepped closer. But so are you. And Ryan. And Mom and Dad. We're all broken people breaking each other. The journal's weight felt impossible in my hands. Why tell me this now? Because Mom might die. Because I lost my baby. Because you destroyed my career trying to punish me for something that started long before that night at Christmas. She wiped her eyes. Because I'm tired of pretending I'm either innocent or evil. The truth is messier than that. What truth? That I loved him first, but you loved him better. That he chose you, but settled for me. That I wanted to hurt you as much as I was hurting. She reached for the journal. And that Mom knew everything, trying to protect us both while hiding her own secrets. Our hands met over the leather cover. For a moment, we were children again, fighting over a toy, neither willing to let go. Ryan's gone, she said quietly. Left this morning. Said he couldn't keep hurting either of us. Good. Is it? Look what we did to each other over someone who couldn't choose. She released the journal. We're sisters, Isla. That should have meant more than any man. The chapel door opened again. Dad stood there, looking older than I'd ever seen him. Your mother's asking for you. Both of you. Mia turned to leave, then paused. You know what the worst part is? I didn't just lose my baby and my career. I lost my sister. And that hurts more than anything Ryan ever did to either of us. She walked away, leaving me with Mom's journal and the weight of years of unspoken truths. The colored light from the windows painted patterns on the pages, like stained tears on confessions too late to matter. I closed the journal, finally understanding that revenge hadn't just destroyed my targets, it had destroyed me too. Mom's roses needed pruning. I stood in her garden, clippers in hand, staring at the overgrown bushes she'd tended so carefully. The morning air carried the antiseptic smell from my scrubs. Night shift at the hospital had ended hours ago, but I couldn't bring myself to go home. The back door creaked. Dad stepped out, coffee mug in hand. She's being discharged today, he said. I nodded, cutting away dead branches. The thorns caught my skin, but I barely felt them. Mia's picking her up. He paused. They're moving into the apartment near the treatment center. Another branch fell. What about you? I'll stay here. Someone needs to take care of her roses. The unspoken truth hung between us. He'd signed the divorce papers, but neither of them could let go completely. Not with Mom's diagnosis, not with everything else broken. I got a call from Princeton, I said, moving to the next bush. About Mia's degree. He stiffened. And? I told them I made it up. That I forged the evidence because I was angry about a personal matter. The thorns drew blood this time. They're reinstating her degree. That could cost you your job. Already did. 2-week suspension and a formal reprimand. I wiped my hands on my scrubs. Turns out actions have consequences. He set down his coffee, picked up another pair of clippers. We worked in silence, cutting away the dead growth, making space for new life. Your mother read me her journal, he finally said. About Mia loving Ryan first. About you planning to leave for London. About everything. Does it matter now? It matters that we all kept secrets thinking we were protecting each other. He straightened, looking at his roses. We're good at growing things, but terrible at keeping them alive. My phone buzzed, a message from Mia, Mom's ready. Coming home first for her gardening gloves. She says the hospital roses need help. I almost smiled. Even now, Mom couldn't stop trying to fix broken things. I'm not staying, I told Dad. I applied for a transfer to the Seattle hospital. Running away? No. Learning to live with what I've done. I gathered the cut branches. Some things can't be fixed with pruning and patience. The sound of a car pulling up made us both turn. Mia helped Mom out, supporting her thin frame. They paused at the garden gate, taking in the sight of their family's wreckage. You started without me, Mom said, her voice stronger than it had been in weeks. Just the dead parts, I replied. She moved slowly to the roses, touching the fresh cuts. Sometimes you have to hurt things to help them heal. I think we've all done enough hurting. Mia's voice cracked. Mom reached for her gardening gloves, the familiar motion somehow both fragile and certain. Then let's try helping instead. We worked together, for broken people trying to save what was left. No one mentioned Ryan, or London, or the secrets we'd all kept. The roses didn't care about our past, they just needed tending. As the sun climbed higher, I found myself working on the same bush as Mia. Our hands met reaching for the same branch. I can't forgive you yet, she said quietly. I know. I pulled back, letting her make the cut. I can't forgive myself either. But maybe. She hesitated. Maybe we can learn to grow something new. I looked at our parents, working on opposite ends of the garden, connected by flowers if not by marriage. At Mom, fighting cancer but still teaching us how to nurture life. At Mia, wounded but not destroyed by my revenge. The morning light caught the dewdrops on the roses, making them shine like tears or stars or possibilities. I picked up my clippers again, ready to cut away more dead growth, knowing that healing, like gardening, takes time and leaves scars. Some thorns you learn to live with. Some cuts never fully heal. But maybe that's what makes the roses bloom so beautifully, they know the cost of growing.
The calculator display blinked at me like a digital heartbeat, $799. Who pays that much for a calculator? I tapped the sleek metal case, wondering if it was made of pure silver or just pretension. The TI Advanced does everything except your taxes, a warm voice said behind me. Though I bet you could program it to try. I turned to find a tall man in a charcoal suit, his smile genuine enough to make my cynicism stutter. For this price, it better do my laundry too. I'm Ryan, he said, picking up the calculator. And I'd say this is more of a third-date purchase. You know, after you're sure they're worth the investment. Peyton, I replied, watching him examine the ridiculous price tag. And I prefer to audit my relationships before making any major acquisitions. His laugh echoed through the electronics store, drawing curious glances. An auditor? That explains the calculator shopping. Though I have to say, most auditors I've met don't have such a sharp sense of humor. Most production directors I've met don't hang out in calculator aisles, hitting on women. I raised an eyebrow, noting his company ID badge. Guilty as charged. He set the calculator down. Bennett Electronics. Family business. Though right now, I'd rather talk about coffee than spreadsheets. I should have said no. My last relationship ended in a spreadsheet, specifically, a detailed accounting of his infidelities that I'd compiled over 3 months. But something in Ryan's eyes made me pause, made me wonder if maybe some risks were worth taking. Coffee sounds good, I heard myself say. But I should warn you, I notice everything. Perfect. He gestured toward the store exit. Because I have nothing to hide. 2 hours later, sitting in a corner cafe, I realized how dangerous those words were. Ryan talked about his family's company with pride, about his father Thomas, who built it from nothing. About his mother Laura, who kept everyone grounded. But when he mentioned his sister Jenna, something shifted in his voice. She's brilliant, he said, stirring his third coffee. Handles all our procurement. Dad says she's got his business sense. But? I prompted, recognizing the hesitation. But nothing. He smiled too quickly. Tell me more about your work. What made you choose auditing? I let him change the subject, filing away that moment of discomfort. I like puzzles, I said. Numbers don't lie. People do, but numbers? They always tell the truth if you know how to read them. That's both fascinating and slightly terrifying. Ryan leaned forward. Would you like to have dinner with me tomorrow night? I promised to keep all my receipts organized. I looked at him, really looked. At the way his confidence didn't quite mask his vulnerability, at how his eyes crinkled when he smiled. At all the little tells that said this man was either exactly what he seemed or the best liar I'd ever met. Yes, I said, surprising myself again. But I have one condition. Name it. No calculators allowed at the table. His laughter filled the cafe again, and something inside me shifted. Like the first number in a complex equation, changing everything that followed. Deal, he said, reaching for my hand. Though I should warn you, my family's going to love you. I didn't know then how wrong he was. Didn't know that in 6 months, his sister Jenna would try to destroy everything I held dear. Didn't know that my ability to read numbers would uncover a betrayal that would tear his family apart. But that's the thing about numbers. They always tell the truth, even when we're not ready to hear it. The Bennett mansion loomed before me like a corporate headquarters masquerading as a home. 3 weeks after meeting Ryan, I stood at their front door, my knuckles white around a bottle of wine I'd spent too long selecting. Ready? Ryan squeezed my hand. They're going to love you. The door opened before I could answer. Laura Bennett's smile was warm enough to melt steel. You must be Peyton. Come in, come in. Ryan hasn't stopped talking about you. The foyer could have housed my entire apartment. Family photos lined the walls, professional portraits of perfect poses, and calculated casual moments. I noticed Ryan featured prominently in most of them, while a dark-haired woman appeared less frequently, often at the edges. Father's in his study, a crisp voice announced from the top of the stairs. He's reviewing quarterly reports. Jenna Bennett descended like royalty, each step measured. Her Louboutins probably cost more than my monthly rent. I'm Jenna, she said, extending a manicured hand. Ryan's sister. I handle procurement for Bennett Electronics. Procurement? I matched her grip. That must keep you busy, especially with the new Asian markets opening up. Something flickered in her eyes. You follow our business dealings? I follow numbers. They tell interesting stories. Jenna, Ryan cut in, Peyton's one of the top forensic auditors at Morrison & Klein. How fascinating. Jenna's smile didn't reach her eyes. Though I hope you're not planning to audit us. Family businesses can be complicated. Thomas Bennett's entrance saved me from responding. He carried authority like a well-worn coat, comfortable but unmistakable. There's my boy, he boomed, embracing Ryan. Then he turned to me, his handshake firm. So you're the calculator girl. Dinner was a masterclass in subtle warfare. Laura's attempts at warmth competed with Jenna's Arctic precision. Every question felt like a test. And your family, Peyton? Thomas asked between bites of perfectly cooked salmon. What do they do? It's just me, I said. My parents died in a car accident when I was 12. My grandmother raised me until college. How awful, Jenna murmured. That must be why you're so detail-oriented. Trying to control what you can. Actually, I met her gaze, it taught me that numbers don't abandon you. They don't lie or make excuses. They just are. Speaking of numbers, Thomas leaned forward. What do you make of the market volatility lately? Our Asian expansion has been interesting. Father, Ryan warned, but I was already answering. The numbers suggest someone's taking advantage of currency fluctuations. Your procurement department must be working overtime to manage the risk. Jenna's fork clattered against her plate. More wine. She stood abruptly, reaching for the bottle. Allow me, Ryan offered, but she'd already moved, her arm brushing mine. Red wine splashed across my white blouse. Oh, I'm so sorry. Jenna's concern was perfect theater. How clumsy of me. Here, let me help. It's fine. I dabbed at the stain with my napkin, noting how the wine spread like blood across fabric. Nothing I can't handle. Laura hustled me to the powder room, armed with club soda and apologies. Through the door, I heard raised voices. Really, Jenna? Ryan's anger was clear. It was an accident, Jenna snapped. Unlike some people's hiring decisions. I pressed my ear to the door, but their voices dropped to hisses. When I emerged, the dining room wore a mask of forced normalcy. Peyton, Thomas called as we prepared to leave. Join us for Sunday brunch next week. I'd love to hear more about your work. Jenna's smile turned predatory. Yes, do come. I'm sure we'll have lots to discuss. In the car, Ryan was quiet for several miles. I'm sorry about Jenna, he finally said. She's protective of the family. Is that what you call it? I watched streetlights flash past. Ryan, what's really going on with your sister? He gripped the steering wheel tighter. Nothing. Everything's fine. But I'd seen the tension in Thomas's shoulders when Asian markets were mentioned. Noticed how Jenna flinched at procurement questions. Something wasn't adding up, and if there's one thing I knew about numbers, they never lie. I just hadn't realized how dangerous the truth would be. 6 months flew past like balance sheets in a windstorm. The diamond on my left hand caught the morning light as I studied the pregnancy test's double pink lines. Ryan and I had planned to announce it at tonight's family dinner, our first real celebration since the wedding 3 months ago. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas, "Need your expertise. Found something odd in Q3 reports. Can you stop by the office before dinner?" I texted back my agreement, trying to ignore the flutter of unease. Since joining the family, I'd noticed Thomas growing increasingly concerned about the company's financials. He'd drop hints, ask careful questions, always with Jenna hovering nearby like a shark, scenting blood. The Bennett Electronics headquarters occupied a gleaming tower downtown. Thomas's office commanded the top floor, but I found him in the conference room, surrounded by papers. "Peyton," he looked up, shadows under his eyes. "Thank you for coming. These procurement reports." He pushed several sheets toward me. "Something's not right." I scanned the numbers, my trained eye catching discrepancies immediately. "These supplier costs are inflated. And these shipping manifests?" The door opened. Jenna stood there, perfectly composed in designer black. "Father, I didn't expect to find you here. On a Saturday." "Just showing Peyton some reports," Thomas said carefully. "Getting a fresh perspective." "How convenient." Jenna's smile was razor-sharp. Our new daughter-in-law, already so invested in family business. She moved closer, peering at the papers. "Though I'm sure you have more exciting news to focus on." My hand instinctively moved to my stomach. "What do you mean?" "Please." She rolled her eyes. "The way you've been avoiding wine? Looking green at breakfast?" "I'm not stupid, Peyton. Though apparently, you think we all are." "Jenna," Thomas warned, but she continued. "Did you really think you could waltz in here, seduce my brother, and take over everything? The company, the family?" Her voice rose. "I've worked my entire life for this company. Everything I've done has been for this family." "Everything you've done?" I kept my voice steady, though my heart raced. "Like inflating supplier costs? Falsifying shipping records?" The silence was deafening. Thomas stood slowly, looking between us. "Careful, Peyton." Jenna's voice dropped to a whisper. "Pregnancy can make women unstable. Paranoid, even. It would be a shame if stress affected the baby." My blood turned to ice. "Is that a threat? A concern? From your loving sister-in-law?" She gathered the papers from the table. "These need to be properly filed. In my department. Where they belong." "Jenna," Thomas's voice cracked like a whip. "Leave those." "It's fine," I interrupted, meeting Jenna's gaze. I already saw what I needed to see. She left with the papers, her heels clicking a victory march. Thomas sank into his chair, suddenly looking every one of his 60 years. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have seen. Should have known." "Known what?" I pressed, but he shook his head. "Not now. Not here. We'll discuss it at dinner." But at dinner, Thomas never showed. Ryan got the call just as we were sitting down. His father had been rushed to the hospital with chest pains. Severe stress, the doctors said. Would need to rest for several days. "How terrible," Jenna murmured, reaching for her wine. "All this excitement can't be good for anyone. Especially not in your condition, Peyton." Laura gasped. "Condition? Are you?" Ryan grabbed my hand, his joy overshadowed by worry for his father. "We were going to announce it tonight. We're having a baby." "Oh, darling." Laura embraced me, tears in her eyes. Jenna's glass clinked against her plate. "How wonderful. Though the timing seems convenient. Right when father's health fails, here comes the next generation of Bennetts." That's enough, Ryan snapped, but I squeezed his hand. It's fine, I said, watching Jenna. Family is complicated. Isn't that what you told me, Jenna? But numbers. Numbers never lie. And sooner or later, every calculation comes due. She held my gaze, challenge meeting challenge. In that moment, we both knew, this wasn't just about family anymore. This was war. And I had 9 months to win it. The baby shower invitations arrived in pale pink and gold, Jenna's elegant handwriting promising celebration and joy. I stared at mine for a full minute, my 6-month bump pressing against the kitchen counter. She's trying, Ryan said, wrapping his arms around me. Mom says she's been planning this for weeks. That's what worries me. I traced the embossed letters. Since Thomas's heart attack, Jenna had been suspiciously accommodating, all while procurement records kept disappearing from the company servers. The Bennett Mansion's grand room sparkled with expensive decorations when we arrived. Jenna floated between guests in a designer dress that probably cost more than my car. Peyton, darling. She air-kissed my cheek. You're absolutely glowing. Though you look tired. Running reports must be exhausting in your condition. Before I could respond, Laura appeared with a tray of mocktails. Let's start with the gifts. I sat in the designated chair, feeling like a specimen under examination as 40 pairs of eyes watched me unwrap presents. Designer baby clothes, antique silver rattles, a custom-made crib that could have housed twins. Open mine next, Jenna handed me a small box, her smile too bright. Inside lay a vintage pearl necklace I recognized from the family photos. Thomas had given it to Laura when Ryan was born. Mother's pearls, Jenna announced to the room. A family tradition, passed down to welcome new Bennett mothers. Her voice carried perfectly. Though they seemed to have gone missing from the safe last month. How fortunate I found them in time. The room went silent. Laura's hand flew to her throat. Missing? But I just wore them at the charity gala. Exactly. Jenna's eyes locked onto mine. Imagine my surprise when I discovered them in the guest room. The one Peyton uses when she works late at the house. My fingers went numb. What are you implying? Nothing, dear sister. I'm sure there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for how Mother's irreplaceable pearls ended up among your things. I started, but Jenna was already addressing the crowd. It's probably pregnancy brain. So forgetful, these days. Though it does make one wonder about those missing procurement files. Enough. Ryan stood. Jenna, this is ridiculous. Is it? She pulled out her phone. Because I have security footage of someone accessing the company servers after hours. Someone with your wife's access code. The room spun. I recognized her trap too late. She'd been planning this for months, laying groundwork, planting evidence. I can explain, I said, but guests were already whispering, gathering their bags. Of course you can, Jenna soothed. Just like you can explain the unauthorized transfers from our Asian accounts? The one's father was investigating before his unfortunate health issues? Laura burst into tears. Ryan's face had gone pale. I stood, pearls clutched in my fist. You want to talk about unauthorized transfers? Let's discuss your offshore accounts, Jenna. The ones you've been funneling company money into for the past year. How dare you? She stepped closer, voice dropping. You have no proof. Don't I? I met her gaze. Thomas showed me those reports for a reason. He knew something was wrong, and now I do too. Thomas is an old man with a weak heart, she hissed. And you're a pregnant woman with questionable mental stability. Who do you think the board will believe? Stop it, both of you. Ryan moved between us. This is supposed to be a celebration. Oh, it is, Jenna smiled. It's a revelation of truth. About who really belongs in this family. I looked around the room, at Laura's tears, at the scattered gifts, at the faces of people who'd already decided my guilt. Then at Ryan, torn between wife and sister, tradition and truth. "You're right," I said, placing the pearls on a side table. "This is about belonging. And truth." I turned to leave, then paused. "But you forgot something, Jenna. Numbers don't care about belonging. They only care about being right." Her laugh followed me out. Good luck proving anything without access to those files. She didn't know I'd already copied everything. Didn't know that while she was planning my downfall, I'd been building her coffin, nail by numerical nail. The game wasn't over. It was just getting started. 3 days after the baby shower disaster, I sat in my home office, surrounded by financial records I'd secretly copied over the past months. My laptop screen glowed with transaction logs, each number a piece of the puzzle I was assembling. The doorbell rang. Thomas Bennett stood there, looking older than his 60 years. "I heard about the shower," he said, stepping inside. "Jenna's always been protective of family assets." "Is that what we're calling embezzlement now?" I spread printouts across my dining table. "Look at these transfers. Every major procurement deal in Asia has a shadow transaction. Money disappearing into accounts I can't trace." Thomas studied the papers, his hands trembling slightly. I suspected. But seeing it. "There's more." I pulled up a document on my laptop. "Someone's been falsifying shipping manifests. Double billing clients. The company's hemorrhaging money, but the books show profit because Jenna's cooking them." He sank into a chair. "My own daughter." The front door opened. Ryan walked in, freezing at the sight of us. "Father? What's going on?" "Show him," Thomas said quietly. I turned the laptop toward Ryan. "Your sister's been stealing from the company. Millions, Ryan. And she's using my access codes to cover her tracks." Ryan's face went through a cascade of emotions: denial, anger, realization. The pearls. The accusations. "She was setting you up?" "As her fall person, yes." I touched my growing belly, feeling our baby kick. If the theft was discovered, all evidence would point to me. "We need to go to the police," Ryan started, but Thomas raised a hand. "Not yet. This needs to be handled internally first. For the company's sake." My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number: "Back off or the board learns about your unauthorized server access." "How's that pregnancy stress level?" I showed it to Ryan. His jaw clenched. "She's threatening our baby now?" He grabbed his keys. "I'm ending this." Wait, but he was already gone, door slamming behind him. Thomas touched my arm. "Let me talk to her first. Maybe if she knows I'm willing to forgive." "Forgive?" I stared at him. "She's stolen millions, threatened your grandchild, and tried to destroy my reputation. This isn't about forgiveness anymore. She's still my daughter. And I'm carrying your grandchild." I gathered the papers. "I won't let her hurt my family. Any of them. Including you." My phone buzzed again. "Laura, emergency at the office. Come quickly. Don't tell anyone." Thomas read the message over my shoulder. "It's Sunday. Why would Laura be at the office?" "She wouldn't." I grabbed my laptop. "But Jenna would use her mother's phone to set a trap." "Then don't go." I thought of Ryan, rushing to confront his sister. Of Laura, possibly being used as bait. Of the baby kicking inside me, reminding me what was really at stake. "I have to." I headed for the door. "But I'm not going alone. Peyton. Call the police. Tell them everything. Then call Ryan, keep him away from the office." I touched the flash drive around my neck, containing copies of all evidence. It's time everyone saw the truth. "Be careful," Thomas called as I left. "Jenna's always been brilliant at games." "This isn't a game anymore," I muttered, starting my car. "It's a reckoning." The Bennett Electronics building loomed ahead, its windows dark except for the top floor, Jenna's office. As I parked, another car pulled in beside me. Laura stepped out, confusion on her face. Peyton? I got a text from Ryan saying to meet him here. My blood ran cold. Jenna hadn't just set a trap, she'd orchestrated a family reunion. And somewhere above us, she was waiting, holding all the pieces she thought would destroy me. But she'd forgotten something crucial: numbers don't lie, and I had 7 months of truth documented in that flash drive. Whatever game she was playing, I was about to change the rules. I took Laura's arm, leading her toward the building. Stay close to me. It's time to show your daughter what real family loyalty looks like. The elevator doors opened to darkness. Laura clutched my arm as we stepped onto the executive floor, emergency lights casting long shadows across empty desks. Jenna? Laura called out. Darling, are you here? A figure moved in Thomas's office. Ryan emerged, his face tight with anger. What are you both doing here? I told you to stay home. You didn't text me, Laura said. Jenna did. Using your number. The overhead lights blazed on. Jenna stood by the breaker panel, wearing the same dress from the baby shower. Family reunion. How touching. It's over, Jenna. Ryan moved toward his sister. We know everything. Do you? She smiled, pulling out her phone. Because I just sent the board some interesting emails. Seems our pregnant auditor has been accessing confidential files, making unauthorized transfers. Covering her tracks poorly. My hand went to the flash drive around my neck. Those transfers trace back to your accounts. Not anymore. She tapped her screen. Amazing what good IT people can do. Every transaction now bears your digital signature. Even the ones happening right now. My phone buzzed. A notification from the company's banking app, large transfers in progress, all under my authorization. Stop this, Laura pleaded. We're family. Family? Jenna's laugh was brittle. Ask father who he trusted with the company's future. Ask Ryan who got every opportunity while I worked twice as hard. Ask our new sister-in-law who father asked to investigate the books. Because you were stealing. Ryan shouted. I was taking what I deserved. She moved to her desk, pulling out a familiar leather folder. Everything I did was for this company. While you played perfect son, I kept us profitable. Made the hard choices. By committing fraud? I stepped forward, but a wave of dizziness hit me. The baby kicked hard. By surviving. Jenna opened the folder. And now you'll all understand what that means. The elevator dinged. Thomas emerged with 2 police officers. It's done, Jenna. I've told them everything. Have you? She smiled. Show them the evidence, Peyton. Your precious flash drive. I reached for my neck. The chain was gone. Looking for this? She held up the drive. Lifted it when I hugged you at the shower. Amateur move, keeping everything in one place. That's not the only copy, I started, but she cut me off. The cloud files? Deleted. Server backups? Corrupted. It's your word against mine, and right now, millions are flowing through your access codes. The room spun again. I grabbed a desk for support, feeling wetness on my legs. Peyton? Ryan rushed to me. You're bleeding. Laura gasped. The baby. Get an ambulance. Thomas shouted. Jenna watched, unmoved. Stress is so dangerous during pregnancy. Maybe if you hadn't been obsessing over false accusations. False? I forced myself upright, fighting the pain. The original files are gone. And in about 10 minutes, you'll be arrested for corporate theft. Such a tragedy, pregnant woman has mental breakdown, tries to frame innocent sister-in-law. Ryan supported my weight as my knees buckled. This isn't a game, Jenna. She needs a hospital. Life isn't fair. She turned to the officers. I'd like to press charges. Through the haze of pain, I saw Laura move to her daughter's desk, saw her hand brush against Jenna's purse. Saw her palm something small. Wait, Laura's voice shook. Before anyone does anything. She held up a small recorder. Let's hear that confession again. Jenna's face went white. What? Your mother's birthday gift, Laura said softly. The one you mocked for being old-fashioned. Digital recordings are so easy to delete, but this is analog. Like the truth. The recorder crackled to life. Everything I did was for this company. I kept us profitable. By surviving. As Jenna lunged for her mother, the officers moved in. Through the chaos, through the pain, I heard sirens approaching. But all I could think was, some numbers can't be erased. Some truths refuse to stay hidden. And some victories cost more than we're prepared to pay. The hospital room felt too small for all the tension it held. 3 days after the office confrontation, I sat propped up in bed, my baby safely stabilized, watching Jenna's arraignment on the room's small TV. Ryan gripped my hand as his sister pleaded not guilty. A knock at the door. Thomas entered, looking grave. The board's reviewing everything. The evidence on Laura's recorder. It's damning. Not damning enough, Ryan muttered. Her lawyers are already talking about mental stress, temporary insanity. That's why I'm here. Thomas placed a thick folder on my lap. These just came in from our Hong Kong office. Backdated contracts, double invoices. All with Jenna's original signatures. My hands trembled as I opened the folder. She got sloppy in the beginning. Before she learned to cover her tracks. The door burst open. Jenna strode in, followed by her lawyer and 2 police officers. Discussing company business without the head of procurement? That's against protocol. You're out on bail? Ryan stood, positioning himself between her and my bed. Money opens doors, brother dear. Speaking of money. She smiled at me. Those transfers under your access codes? Still unexplained. That's enough, Thomas started, but Jenna raised her hand. No, father, it's not. You want truth? Here's truth. She moved closer to my bed. I built this company's success while Ryan played favorite son. Every deal, every contract, I made them happen. And my reward? Being investigated by an outsider. You stole millions, I said quietly. I earned millions. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? Little orphan Peyton, so desperate for family, she'd destroy one to belong. The baby monitor beeped steadily. I looked at it, then at her. You're right. I don't understand family the way you do. I never had siblings to betray. Betray? Her laugh was sharp. I protected this family. Every illegal deal kept us competitive. Every stolen dollar kept people employed. But you only see numbers, don't you? Black and white. No gray areas. Show her, Thomas said suddenly. I pulled out one last document from under my pillow. Your first procurement deal, Jenna. The one that started everything. She froze. Father was so proud, he kept the original contract. Complete with your notes in the margin, calculations showing how to skim money through inflated costs. You weren't protecting the company. You were testing how much you could take. You don't understand. I understand numbers. And fear. I touched my stomach. You were afraid of being overlooked. Of not measuring up. So you took what you thought you deserved, then couldn't stop. Shut up. She lunged forward, but the officers caught her arms. The thing about numbers, Jenna? I continued. They're like family. Complex, interconnected. Change one, you affect them all. Just like your actions affected everyone in this room. Laura appeared in the doorway, tears streaming. Oh, Jenna. Why didn't you just talk to us? Talk? Jenna struggled against the officers. Like you talked to me, Mother? All those years of Ryan's so successful, and why can't you be more like your brother? I never. You didn't have to. It was in every look, every silence. Well, guess what? I succeeded. I made myself indispensable. Until she came along. She glared at me. The perfect daughter-in-law. The one who could do no wrong. No, I said softly. Just the one who could read the numbers. And they told me everything you couldn't say. Thomas stepped forward. Jenna Bennett, you're formally terminated from Bennett Electronics. And? His voice cracked. You're no longer welcome in this family's home. You can't. I can. I must. He turned away. Officers, please remove my daughter. As they led her out, Jenna looked back once. In that moment, I saw not the sophisticated executive, but a little girl still trying to prove her worth. The numbers don't lie, she said quietly. But sometimes I wish they did. The door closed behind her. Ryan buried his face in my shoulder. Laura sobbed in Thomas's arms. And on the monitor, our baby's heartbeat continued its steady count. Marking time like numbers in a ledger, each beat a reminder that some calculations change us forever. The calculator sits on my desk, its display dark, the same ridiculously expensive model that brought Ryan and me together. Now it serves as a paperweight for court documents detailing Jenna's guilty plea. My daughter kicks in her carrier beside me as I review the final numbers. The restitution payments, the legal fees, the restructuring costs, they all add up to one complicated truth: some debts can never be fully repaid. A knock at my office door. Laura stands there, holding a familiar leather-bound folder. These came from Jenna's attorney. More evidence? Letters. She places them on my desk. One for each of us. She wrote them during her first month in prison. I stare at the envelopes, each name written in Jenna's precise handwriting. Have you read yours? Not yet. Laura touches her letter with trembling fingers. Some calculations I'm not ready to face. The baby fusses. I lift her, breathing in her powder-fresh scent as I rock her. Did you know she used to help me with math homework? Laura continues. Before the competition with Ryan started. Before everything became about proving herself. My letter feels heavy in my hands. Through the window, I can see the Bennett Electronics building, its windows reflecting the setting sun. Thomas and Ryan are there now, rebuilding what Jenna nearly destroyed. She asked to meet you, Laura says quietly. When you're ready. I'm not sure I'll ever be ready. Neither was I. She pulls something from her purse, the pearl necklace from the baby shower. But family ledgers are never truly closed, are they? I think of Jenna in her cell, writing letters she wasn't sure would be read. Of the little girl in those family photos, always at the edges, watching her brother shine. What do the numbers tell you now? Laura asks. I look at my daughter, at her tiny fingers curled around my thumb. That some calculations don't fit in neat columns. That balance sheets can't measure what really matters. And revenge? Feels different when you're holding something precious. I adjust the baby's blanket. Maybe that's what Jenna never had, something to protect besides her pride. Laura stands to leave, but pauses. Will you read it? I pick up Jenna's letter. Numbers don't lie, but they don't tell the whole story either. Maybe it's time I heard hers. After Laura leaves, I open the envelope. Jenna's words stare back at me. Dear Peyton. You once told me numbers don't abandon you. But people do. Or at least, that's what I always feared. Every achievement became a shield, every dollar a defense against being left behind. I thought I was protecting myself, but I was really just proving what I feared most, that I wasn't worth loving without proving my value. You protected our family by exposing me. I protected no one by betraying them. That's a calculation I'm still learning to live with. Take care of them. And maybe someday, teach my niece that her worth isn't measured in balance sheets or boardroom victories. Jenna. The baby yawns, her tiny face peaceful. I think of the calculator that started everything, of how some connections can't be quantified. Of how revenge, like redemption, rarely follows a straight line. I reach for my phone, type a short message, visit approved. Bring a calculator. Some numbers need witnesses. Because maybe that's what family really is, not a perfect equation, but a complex formula of mistakes and mercy, betrayal and forgiveness. All adding up to something greater than its parts. My daughter stretches in her sleep, and I add one final entry to today's ledger. Some debts are meant to be forgiven, not collected. Some battles end not with victory, but with understanding. And sometimes, the truest calculations are the ones that don't balance at all.
The phone rings exactly as Caleb dumps his bowl of cereal across the kitchen table. Milk cascades onto my freshly ironed blouse, and I bite back a curse while fumbling for my cell. The number isn't familiar, but I've been waiting for this call. Is this Sutton Reynolds? Yes, speaking. I'm already dabbing at my blouse with a paper towel, watching the milk seep deeper into the fabric. This is Margaret from Riverside Technologies. We'd like to offer you the position of Senior Project Manager. My hand freezes mid-dab. The salary she quotes makes my knees weak. It's double what I'm making now. Double. The kind of money that could pull us out of this paycheck-to-paycheck existence, maybe even let us move out of this cramped rental. There's just one detail, Margaret continues. The position requires regular travel between our 3 offices. You'll need reliable transportation. Our ancient Honda with its check engine light permanently illuminated flashes through my mind. The same car that left us stranded 3 times last month. Of course, I lie smoothly. That won't be a problem. After hanging up, I stare at Caleb, who's now finger painting with spilled milk. Baby, Mommy just got some really good news. Better than pancakes? He looks up hopefully. Way better than pancakes. I scoop him up, milk sticky hands and all, and spin him around. His giggle is pure sunshine. Brandon walks in, still in his ratty weekend sweats. What's all the excitement about? I got the job. I sat Caleb down. The Riverside position. It's happening. His face lights up, then dims slightly. That's amazing, but don't they need you to travel? In our car. We'll figure it out. We can use the anniversary trip money. Elaine's anniversary trip? Brandon's expression shifts. Honey, you know how much Mom's been looking forward to that. And there it is. The shadow of my mother-in-law, falling across every major decision we make. Elaine, with her guilt-laden sighs and passive-aggressive suggestions about how we should live our lives. Elaine, who's been planning her lavish anniversary celebration for months, expecting us to foot a significant portion of the bill. Brandon, this is our future we're talking about. A real chance to get ahead. I know, but he runs a hand through his hair. Maybe we can find another way. Mom's done so much for us. The doorbell chimes, right on cue. Speaking of the devil. Grandma. Caleb races to the door before I can stop him. Elaine sweeps in, designer handbag swinging, perfectly coiffed as always. There's my precious boy. She scoops up Caleb, then eyes my milk-stained blouse with barely concealed disdain. Oh dear Sutton. Having a rough morning. Actually, I just got some wonderful news. I force a smile. I was offered that job I interviewed for. The one that requires all that traveling? Her lips purse. But who will look after Caleb? You know how important stability is for children his age. We'll manage, I say firmly. In fact, we're thinking of using the anniversary trip money to buy a reliable car instead. The temperature in the room drops 10 degrees. Elaine sets Caleb down slowly, her face a mask of hurt that doesn't quite reach her eyes. I see. She smooths her expensive blazer. Well, I suppose some people prioritize career over family. Though I always hoped you'd make different choices than your own mother did, Sutton. The barb hits its mark with surgical precision. My hands clench into fists beneath the kitchen counter. Brandon shifts uncomfortably, caught between wife and mother, as usual. Mom, we can discuss this later, he attempts. But I've had enough of later. Enough of tiptoeing around Elaine's feelings while she tramples over mine. Something inside me hardens, crystallizes. No, I say quietly. We'll discuss it now. 3 days after the kitchen confrontation, I find Elaine sitting cross-legged on our living room floor with Caleb, surrounded by photo albums I've never seen before. "And here's your daddy when he was your age," she coos, pointing to a faded photograph. "Notice how neat his room is?" Unlike what? I interrupt, setting down my grocery bags harder than necessary. Elaine doesn't flinch. "Oh, Sutton. I was just showing Caleb some family history. Something he should know about, don't you think?" The way she emphasizes family makes my skin crawl. I notice Caleb's toys have been meticulously arranged on his shelf, not how I left them this morning. "Mommy, Grandma says you're making Daddy sad." Caleb pipes up, innocent eyes wide. "Is that true?" The room goes still. I feel heat rising in my chest, but keep my voice steady. "No, baby. That's not true at all. Why don't you go play in your room while I talk to Grandma?" Once he's gone, I turn to Elaine. "How dare you?" I'm simply concerned. She closes the album with careful precision. "Brandon's been so stressed lately. The way he picks at his food, barely sleeps. Just like when his father left." The comparison lands like a slap. This is nothing like that. I'm trying to improve our lives. By destroying what we've built? She stands, smoothing her expensive slacks. "First the anniversary trip, now this new job taking you away from your family. It's like watching history repeat itself." What's that supposed to mean? Well, dear, we both know how your mother chose her career over family. Though I suppose some patterns are hard to break. My fingers curl into fists. You had no right to come here without asking. And you absolutely have no right to fill my son's head with. The front door opens. Brandon walks in, stopping short at the tension in the room. "Mom? What are you doing here?" "Just leaving, darling." Elaine gathers her purse, but pauses to touch Brandon's cheek. "You look tired. Are you eating enough?" I watch my husband lean into her touch, just slightly. Something twists in my stomach. After she leaves, Brandon sighs. "What happened?" "Your mother happened. She was here poisoning our son against me." "Come on, Sutton." "She's just worried." "About what?" "That I might actually succeed? That we might not need her money anymore." "That's not fair." He runs a hand through his hair. "She's helped us through some rough times. And she never lets us forget it." I lower my voice, conscious of Caleb upstairs. "She's using our son to manipulate us, Brandon. Can't you see that?" He moves to the kitchen, avoiding my eyes. "Maybe if we compromise on the anniversary trip." "This isn't about the trip anymore." I follow him. "It's about your mother thinking she can control our lives because she's helped us financially. She's family, Sutton. What do you want me to do?" "I want you to choose us. Your wife and son. Not your mother's guilt trips and manipulation." Brandon starts making coffee, his movements jerky. "It's not that simple." "Actually, it is." I grab my keys. "I'm going to look at cars tomorrow. With or without your support." "Sutton. And one more thing. Your mother doesn't come here unless we're both home. No more surprise visits." He sets down the coffee pot too hard, liquid sloshing. "You're acting like she's some kind of threat." "Isn't she?" I meet his gaze. "When was the last time you made a decision without wondering what she'd think?" The silence stretches between us. Upstairs, I hear Caleb humming to himself, oblivious to the fractures forming beneath our feet. "I need some air," Brandon finally says, heading for the door. "Running to your mother's?" He stops, hand on the doorknob. "Maybe I am. At least she doesn't make me choose sides." The door closes behind him with a quiet click that echoes like a gunshot. I stand in our kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of Elaine's visit. Reorganized cabinets, folded dish towels, all the little ways she marks her territory. My phone buzzes. A text from the dealership confirming tomorrow's appointment. I stare at it, thinking about choices and consequences, about the fine line between revenge and self-preservation. Upstairs, Caleb calls out, "Mommy? Can we look at more pictures?" I delete the text. Some battles need to be fought differently. The supermarket feels like neutral territory until I spot Martha examining tomatoes 2 aisles over. I duck behind a display of cereal boxes, but it's too late. She's already waving, walking over with that concerned smile I've grown to hate. Sutton, dear. I've been meaning to call you. Of course she has. Martha, Elaine's eternal echo chamber. I force a smile. Hello, Martha. Such a shame about the tension lately. She lowers her voice conspiratorially. Elaine's been beside herself, barely sleeping. Really? I examine a box of cornflakes with unnecessary intensity. That must be why she had enough energy to reorganize my entire kitchen yesterday. Martha's smile tightens. She means well. We're all just worried about Caleb with all these changes you're planning. What changes would those be, exactly? Well, she glances around, then leans closer. The new job, moving away from family support, following in your mother's footsteps. The cereal box crumples slightly in my grip. Who said anything about moving away? Oh. Martha's hand flies to her mouth. I just assumed with the new position. Elaine mentioned you'd been looking at houses in the next county. The lie hits me like a physical blow. I haven't looked at a single house. Haven't even considered moving. But here's Elaine, spinning her web of fabrications, turning family members against me one carefully crafted story at a time. Excuse me, I manage, abandoning my shopping cart. I find myself in my car, hands shaking as I dial Brandon's number. Straight to voicemail. Again. He's been avoiding my calls since our fight, probably holed up at his mother's house, letting her poison him with more lies. A text comes through, from my new boss. Looking forward to having you on board Monday. Car situation sorted. I start the engine, my decision crystallizing. The dealership is only 15 minutes away. I've got enough in my personal savings for a down payment, money I've been squirreling away in secret. My escape fund from years of financial dependence on Elaine's generosity. The dealership's lot is quiet when I arrive. I'm examining a sensible used sedan when I hear familiar voices around the corner. She's not thinking clearly, Brandon. Remember what happened with her mother? History repeating itself. I freeze. Elaine's voice, here of all places. I edge closer, staying hidden behind a row of cars. Mom, I know you're worried, but the house she looked at is 40 minutes away. 40 minutes from your job, from Caleb's school, from family. Just like her mother, always running away when things get difficult. What house? Brandon sounds confused. Sutton hasn't said anything about moving. Because she knows you'd object. I saw the realtor's card in her purse when I was tidying up. Always sneaking around that one. Just like. Stop. Brandon's voice hardens. Just stop. I step out from behind the cars, slow clapping. They both whirl around. Bravo, Elaine. Really stellar performance. My voice sounds strange in my ears, calm despite the rage burning through me. Tell me, did you plant that realtor's card yourself, or did you just make it up completely? Elaine recovers quickly, her face arranging itself into concerned disappointment. Sutton, dear, we're only trying to help. By following me? By lying to my husband? By spreading rumors about me to the entire family? Brandon looks between us, realization dawning. Mom, what's going on? Your wife is destroying this family. Elaine snaps, mask finally cracking. Someone had to do something before. Before what? I step closer. Before I become financially independent? Before I stop needing your help? Before I can make decisions without your approval? Sutton, Brandon starts. No. I turn to him. You need to choose right now. Are you going to keep enabling this, or are you going to stand with your wife? The silence stretches. A salesman approaches, senses the tension, and quickly retreats. I should go, Elaine says finally, gathering her dignity around her like armor. Call me when she's being reasonable again, Brandon. She walks away, heels clicking on pavement. Brandon watches her go, then turns to me with tired eyes. We need to talk, he says. Yes, I agree, thinking of Martha in the supermarket, of Caleb's confused questions, of years of subtle manipulation. We really do. The email from Caleb's soccer coach arrives during my lunch break. Due to unexpected withdrawal of sponsorship, the junior league program will be suspended indefinitely. My screen blurs. Elaine's fingerprints are all over this. She's been the program's primary donor for years. I close my laptop just as Brandon walks into my home office, holding a stack of papers. Did you see the email? His voice is tight. She works fast, I'll give her that. I stand up, needing to move. How many other programs has she pulled funding from? He spreads the papers across my desk. Caleb's art classes. The reading program. The summer camp deposit. All canceled, all refunded. It's not just about us anymore, Brandon says. The soccer program supported 20 kids from low-income families. That's the point. Maximum collateral damage for maximum guilt. I laugh, but it sounds hollow. Your mother's quite the strategist. We need to talk to her. No, what we need is independence. I grab my car keys. I'm picking up Caleb early. Coming. He hesitates. Mom invited us for dinner. To talk things through. Of course she did. I turn to face him. And if we go, she'll apologize tearfully, offer to reinstate everything with conditions. Same pattern, different day. She's still his grandmother. Is she? Because right now she's using him as a weapon. The drive to Caleb's school is silent. When we arrive, we find him sitting with his teacher, Mrs. Chen, who waves us into the classroom with unusual urgency. I'm glad you're both here, she says, after Caleb goes to pack his bag. I'm concerned about some things Caleb's been saying. My stomach drops. What things? He mentioned that his grandmother told him you're planning to take him away from his father. Mrs. Chen's eyes are gentle but concerned. He's been drawing some troubling pictures. She slides a paper across her desk. The crayon drawing shows 3 figures, one blue, Brandon, one yellow, Caleb, and one red, me, walking in different directions. At the edge, a larger figure in black, Elaine, watches. He said his grandmother helps him understand why Mommy wants to leave, Mrs. Chen continues. I thought you should know. Brandon's hands clench the edge of the tiny desk he's perched on. I watch his knuckles turn white. Thank you, I manage. We'll handle this. In the car, Caleb chatters about his day, oblivious to the tension. Brandon stares straight ahead, driving mechanically. I check my phone, 3 missed calls from Elaine. Let's get ice cream, Caleb suggests. Not today, buddy, Brandon says, making an unexpected turn. We need to stop somewhere first. I recognize the route to Elaine's house. Brandon. No more proxy wars through our son. His voice is different, harder than I've ever heard it. This ends today. We pull into Elaine's driveway. Through the window, I see her watering her precious roses, Martha beside her. They look up at our arrival, and something in Elaine's expression shifts. Triumph, maybe, thinking we've come to surrender. Grandma. Caleb unbuckles his seatbelt. Wait, Brandon says. He turns to our son with a gentleness that makes my throat tight. Remember how we talked about telling the truth? Even when it's hard. Caleb nods solemnly. We need to have a family talk about that right now. About truth and lies, and how they can hurt people we love. I watch Elaine approach the car, her perfect smile in place. But there's something else in her eyes now, fear, maybe seeing Brandon's expression. Ready? Brandon asks me. I think of the crayon drawing, of soccer programs canceled, of whispered poison in our son's ear, of years of subtle manipulation disguised as love. My hand finds Brandon's across the console. Ready. Caleb looks between us, sensing something important is happening. Outside, Elaine reaches for the car door, but Brandon hits the lock button. Just for a moment, just long enough to make it clear, this time we're in control of how this conversation starts. The anniversary party invitation sits on our counter like a loaded gun. Cream-colored paper, gold embossing, pure Elaine. I trace the letters with my finger while Brandon paces behind me. We have to go, he says. The whole family will be there. That's exactly why she's doing this. I turn the invitation over. 2 weeks after she manipulated our son, canceled his activities, and now she wants to play happy families? Maybe it's an olive branch. The doorbell rings. Caleb races to answer it before we can stop him. Martha stands there, holding a casserole dish. Just thought you could use a home-cooked meal, she says, gliding past me. And to make sure you received the invitation. Elaine's been so worried you might not come. I catch Brandon's eye. This is how it always starts. The subtle pressure, the guilt, The family emissaries. Actually, I say, we were just discussing. Oh, you must come. Martha sets down the dish. Elaine's planned such a lovely surprise. She's even arranged for that trip she promised. Brandon stiffens. What trip? The anniversary trip, of course. She's been so secretive about it, but I happened to see the bookings. Very generous of her, considering everything. My hands shake as I pour coffee. Elaine hasn't booked anything she can't have. Not after withdrawing support for Caleb's activities. Not after our confrontation. Caleb, honey, I call out. Go play upstairs for a bit. Once he's gone, I face Martha. There is no trip, is there? I saw the documents myself. Martha sips her coffee primly. First-class tickets. Luxury resort. Though I suppose if you're not interested. Stop. Brandon's voice cuts through the room. Just stop. Mom's manipulating everyone again, isn't she? Martha's cup clatters against its saucer. I don't know what you mean. The trip that doesn't exist. The rumors about Sutton. Using Caleb against us. All of it. Your mother only wants what's best. We'll be at the party. I interrupt, surprising everyone, including myself. All three of us. After Martha leaves, Brandon stares at me. What are you planning? Nothing. I start clearing dishes. Just tired of letting her control the narrative. The night of the party arrives too quickly. Elaine's house glows with fairy lights, packed with relatives who've flown in for the occasion. She greets us at the door, resplendent in designer silk. My darlings. She hugs Caleb tight, then whispers in my ear. So glad you made the right choice. I smile, remembering the USB drive in my purse. The one containing recordings of every conversation where she admitted to manipulating us, including her confession about the fake trip. The one I plan to play during her speech. The evening unfolds like a carefully choreographed dance. Elaine holds court, accepting congratulations, while subtly dropping hints about the surprise trip she's planned. I watch relatives' faces light up with anticipation, see them glance at me with judgment when they think I'm not looking. Finally, Elaine taps her glass for attention. Before I announce our surprise, I want to thank everyone for being here. Family is everything to me, especially in difficult times. Her eyes find mine across the room. Sometimes we face challenges, misunderstandings, but love prevails. Which is why my hand touches my purse. One move and I could expose everything. The lies, the manipulation, the psychological warfare waged through our child. But then I see Caleb, watching his grandmother with pure adoration. Brandon, tension visible in every line of his body. The collateral damage would be catastrophic. Elaine continues, which is why I'm announcing that instead of a trip, I'm establishing a trust fund for Caleb's education. The room erupts in applause. She's outmaneuvered me again, turning potential revenge into a poison pill. If I expose her now, I'm the ungrateful daughter-in-law destroying a grandmother's generous gesture. Brandon grips my hand under the table. We don't have to accept it. No, I say, watching Elaine bask in the family's approval. We don't. I stand up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. The room goes quiet. Elaine's smile freezes as I reach for my purse. Sometimes the best revenge isn't exposure, it's freedom. The silence in Elaine's study feels like a physical weight. The party guests have gone home, leaving behind empty champagne flutes and whispered judgments. Brandon stands by the window, while Caleb sleeps on the leather sofa, exhausted from the evening's drama. Well, Elaine says, perfectly composed despite everything. I assume you have something to say about my generous offer. I pull out the USB drive, place it on her mahogany desk. Actually, I have something to play. Her eyes narrow slightly. What is this? Everything. I press play on my phone connected to the drive. Her voice fills the room, crystal clear. Of course I made up the trip. Sometimes you need to create pressure to keep a family together. Brandon's sharp intake of breath cuts through the recording. I play another. Elaine instructing Martha about which rumors to spread, which neighbors to influence. Turn it off. Elaine's voice trembles slightly. There's more. I scroll through the files. Should we listen to you coaching Caleb about mommy wanting to leave? Or maybe your conversation about canceling his activities? I did what was necessary. She stands, smoothing her silk dress. Everything I've done has been for this family. No. Brandon moves from the window. Everything you've done has been for control. Brandon, darling. Don't. He holds up a hand. Just don't, Mom. Elaine's facade cracks, just slightly. You don't understand. When your father left, this isn't about Dad. Brandon's voice rises, and Caleb stirs on the sofa. This is about you manipulating everyone around you, including my son. I was protecting him. Elaine's composure shatters. From her, just like her mother, always ready to abandon family for ambition. I saw the signs. The signs you invented? I stand up. The moving plans you made up? The lies you told everyone. They weren't lies. She grabs a folder from her desk, throws it open. I had proof. The realtor calls. The house listings. Brandon picks up the papers, examines them. These are fake. Mom, you forged these. Something shifts in Elaine's eyes, something desperate and dangerous. Martha, she calls out sharply. Martha appears in the doorway, holding an envelope. I'm sorry, Elaine. I can't do this anymore. What's in the envelope? I ask. The real estate listings. Martha's hands shake. The ones Elaine asked me to create, to make it look like Sutton was planning to leave. The room spins slightly. All this time, the depth of Elaine's manipulation went deeper than we imagined. Give me that. Elaine lunges for the envelope, but Martha steps back. No. Martha's voice strengthens. This has to stop. Elaine turns to Brandon, tears welling. Everything I did was to protect you, to keep our family together. Without me, without my help, we'll manage. Brandon's voice is ice. But you need help, Mom. Professional help. How dare you? She whirls on me. This is your doing. Turning my own son against me. Well, fine. You want independence? Let's see how you manage without my support. The trust fund, Caleb's school fees, everything gone. Mom. No, Brandon. They want freedom? Let them have it. But remember who was there for every scraped knee, every school payment, every crisis. Stop. Caleb's small voice cuts through the tension. He's sitting up on the sofa, eyes wide and frightened. Please stop fighting. The silence that follows is deafening. I move to comfort him, but he shrinks away from me, from all of us. I want to go home, he whispers. Elaine steps toward him. Sweetheart, don't. Brandon picks up our son. Just don't, Mom. We're leaving. As we walk out, Elaine calls after us, you'll be back. You'll see I was right. You always come back. In the car, Caleb's quiet sobs fill the silence. Brandon drives mechanically, knuckles white on the steering wheel. I stare at the USB drive in my hand, wondering if revenge was worth the cost of our son's innocence. My phone buzzes, a text from my new boss. Looking forward to Monday. Car situation sorted. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of everything we've just lost, everything we still stand to lose. Sometimes winning feels exactly like losing. The family meeting wasn't my idea. Martha called it, inviting everyone to her house 3 days after the anniversary party disaster. I stand in her kitchen now, watching relatives filter in, their faces a mix of concern and curiosity. They need to know, Martha says, clutching a manila envelope. All of it. Brandon squeezes my hand as Elaine arrives last, head high, perfect as always, until she sees Martha's envelope. Her step falters just slightly. What's this about? She demands. Martha's hands shake as she opens the envelope. I've been keeping records. Receipts. Letters. Recordings. Everything you asked me to help you with over the years. The room goes still. Elaine's laugh sounds brittle. Martha, dear, you're being dramatic. Am I? Martha pulls out a stack of papers. The fake real estate listings were just the start. Should we discuss the anonymous letters you sent to Sutton's potential employers? Or the calls to Caleb's school about her supposed neglect? Gasps ripple through the room. I feel my knees weaken. I'd suspected, but the scope of it. You're lying, Elaine snaps, but her perfect mask is cracking. The trust fund announcement? Martha continues. There never was one. You were going to announce its cancellation today. Blame Sutton for forcing your hand. Brandon steps forward. Mom. Everything I did was for this family. Elaine's voice rises. You were all too blind to see the danger. Just like with your father, Brandon. Remember how he left? How he chose his new life over us? I saw the same signs in her. No. Martha's voice strengthens. You created those signs. Just like you did with Dad. The room goes silent. Elaine's face drains of color. What? Brandon whispers. Martha pulls out one final document, yellowed with age. Dad didn't leave us for another woman, Elaine. You drove him away. Just like you're trying to do with Sutton. Elaine lunges for the letter, but Martha holds firm. Enough. I step forward, surprising everyone. This ends now. You don't understand, Elaine pleads. I was protecting. No. My voice is steady. You were controlling. There's a difference. I gave you everything. She whirls on Brandon. Everything. And this is how you repay me. By finding the truth? Brandon's voice cracks. By finally seeing what you've done to all of us? A sound from the doorway makes us turn. Caleb stands there, clutching his backpack, the one we'd packed for his cousin to watch him during the meeting. Grandma. His voice is small. Did you tell lies about Mommy? The moment hangs, crystalline and fragile. Elaine takes a step toward him, but Brandon moves first. Yes, buddy, he says gently. Grandma told lies. But that doesn't mean she doesn't love you. Then why? Caleb's question cuts through all the adult complexity to the heart of things. Elaine crumples into a chair, her perfect facade finally shattering completely. Because I was afraid, she whispers. So afraid of being alone. The irony hits like a physical blow. In trying to keep everyone close, she's pushed them all away. Martha moves to her sister's side, places a hand on her shoulder. It's time to get help, Elaine. Real help. I watch my mother-in-law, this woman who's caused so much pain, who's also clearly in pain herself, and feel something shift inside me. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. The trust fund, the activities, the financial support, I say quietly. Keep them. We don't need them anymore. Brandon nods. What we need is boundaries. And time. And therapy, Martha adds firmly. Elaine looks up, tears tracking through her perfect makeup. For the first time, I see her clearly, not as an antagonist to be defeated, but as a wounded person who wounded others. I don't know how to be different, she whispers. That's okay, I surprise myself by saying. You can learn. We all can. Caleb approaches cautiously, takes his grandmother's hand. In that simple gesture, I see both the cost of revenge and the possibility of healing. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in destroying your enemy, but in choosing to break the cycle of hurt. The brochure for the wellness retreat sits between us on Martha's kitchen table. Elaine stares at it like it might bite. It's not punishment, Martha says gently. Think of it as a reset. I watch Elaine's perfectly manicured fingers trace the retreat's name. 3 weeks of therapy, meditation, and family counseling, all arranged by Martha, who's finally stepping out of her sister's shadow. And after, Elaine's voice is smaller than I've ever heard it. After depends on you, Brandon says. He's standing by the window where our new used car is parked outside, bought with my first paycheck from the new job. Not fancy, but ours. Caleb asked about you yesterday. I say, surprising everyone, including myself. He wants to know if you'll be at his soccer game next month. Elaine's head snaps up. But I thought, after everything. Limited contact, Brandon clarifies. Supervised visits. Small steps. Why? Elaine's question is directed at me. After everything I did, why offer even that much? I think about the letter I found in my mailbox this morning, from my own mother, responding to the one I sent her last week. The first contact in 15 years. Some cycles need to be broken. Because revenge wasn't the answer, I say. I almost became what I was fighting against. Martha pulls out one final document, a contract of sorts. Professional therapy requirements, communication boundaries, consequences clearly outlined. No more financial manipulation, no unsupervised time with Caleb, no surprise visits. It's non-negotiable, Brandon says as Elaine reads. She nods slowly, then does something I've never seen before. She takes off her perfect pearl necklace, the one she always wears like armor. I spoke to your father, she tells Brandon. After everything came out. He's willing to tell you his side of the story, if you want to hear it. Brandon's sharp intake of breath is the only sound in the room. I reach for his hand, find it trembling slightly. One thing at a time, he manages. Elaine signs the contract without further comment. As Martha helps her pack for the retreat, I step outside, needing air. The morning is crisp, full of possibility. Brandon joins me, wrapping his arms around my waist from behind. You okay? Are any of us? He chuckles softly. Fair point. Inside, we hear Caleb's voice. He's arrived with his aunt, who's been watching him. He's showing Elaine his new soccer cleats, bought with money we earned ourselves. Her response is muted, careful, she's trying. It's strange, I say. I wanted revenge so badly. Wanted to expose everything, make her hurt like we hurt. But now I just want peace. Real peace, not the fake kind we had before. The front door opens. Elaine steps out, suitcase in hand. She looks smaller somehow, without her usual perfect facade. Sutton, she calls softly. That job of yours. The one that started all this. Are you good at it? Yes, I say simply. I am. She nods, something like respect flickering across her face. Good? That's good. As Martha drives her away, Caleb slips his small hand into mine. Is Grandma sick? Not exactly, Brandon answers. She's learning to be better. Like when I had to learn not to hit Tommy at school? I laughed to spite myself. Something like that. Inside, I find a USB drive with all the recordings. My planned revenge, my evidence, my ammunition. I turn it over in my hands while Brandon makes coffee and Caleb chatters about soccer. Keep it or destroy it? Brandon asks, watching me. I think about cycles, about choices, about the fine line between justice and vengeance, about my mother's letter, waiting to be read, about Elaine's pearl necklace, left behind on Martha's table like a surrender flag. Neither, I decide, tucking it away in a drawer. Just in case. But hopefully we'll never need it. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well on your own terms. And sometimes healing comes not from winning the battle, but from choosing which battles are worth fighting at all.